Everybody? This is John Bell, and this is the Harbinger Report. And I brought back my co-host Shawn Starry, and we're going to be discussing the wildfires, or otherwise weaponized wildfires, going on in California. And we're going to be discussing Shawn Starry's background with home security and his company with that. It hit me just the other day. I was thinking, after all the times I've had him on this show, we haven't done a show just about like home security, and that's like his big thing now. So I was like, hey, we got to do a show on that. But with all the stuff going on in California, I wanted to make sure and cover some of that material since it's the big thing in the news right now, and it is so important. And it is so important for people to understand exactly what is going on with that out there. So let me get into that real quick, and I'm going to hit on some of the news stories, and then Shawn and I can discuss it, and then get into the home security game. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, so starting up, proof that the Democratic Party crime syndicate intentionally burned LA to the ground using bureaucratic administration warfare. That is what is going on. That is what we were making a case for. And that involves, they've got a water reservoir that's supposed to be stocked up so that the firefighters can fight these fires when they happen. And they are in there, even though it's winter for much of the country. This is a fire season for California. Remember, they've got warm climates, heavy winds, and dry underbrush, which is the recipe for fire. Okay, as long as you got an ignition source, you've got napalm, essentially. So that being the case, if you look at some of the things the administration has done, like they took their main water reservoir and they dumped it completely empty 2 months prior to the event. And people are asking why. And there's no good explanation. Why, as you're coming into your known fire hazard season, would the government intentionally dump their entire reservoir of water back into the ocean? And then Whitmore, which stands for Whitmoron, he refused to use any of the other reservoirs, so that you actually had fire departments that don't have the resources they need. Not to mention, speaking of resources they need, with their little liberal communist globalist government over there in California, which is the capital of communism in the United States, aside from Washington, D.C., second to New York, right? Boy, how our country would be if we just didn't have those two countries, those two states in our country being straight out communist globalists, But that said, it turns out that Whitmore had donated fire hoses and much of the fire department's equipment to the Ukraine. Really? Imagine that. And now they don't have the equipment that they need to fight their own fires. They stopped doing testing on the fire hydrants, which is standard operating procedure. And in California, it's illegal for you to clean up underbrush from wood lines. Okay? Now, in any part of the country of the world, if you're going to be living in a wilderness area, the first thing you do is cut back the underbrush, dead growth in forests, especially around your house. Yeah. Because these are nothing more than matches for fires. Okay? That's standard operating procedure. However, in California, the little libtards have made that illegal. In fact, there was a family I heard in the news this week that was fined $50,000 by California because they cut back some of the underbrush to prevent their house from being burnt down. You can't make this stuff up. Now, to a normal person, that seems like idiocracy or doesn't make sense. But if you understand the communist globalist agenda, it makes perfect sense. They want chaos. They want destruction. Okay? So those are the things that we are addressing and dealing with. Must watch how forest fires are deployed as military weapon. And that's exactly what it is. It's a military weapon. In fact, not only do we have arson that's taken place, and who's behind that. You could have paid actors being behind that, just like Antifa was largely paid to do what they were doing, bust out, shipped, monetized, paid to create havoc.
Yep.
Just consequently, with truckloads of bricks and material like that delivered on sites. Okay, that's all by design. That's not coincidence. It's not accident. All right, and we don't hold any of those people accountable. And you've got huge law firms getting people who are caught out of jail ASAP. Whereas January 6th, you've got a peaceful demonstration, and you still have people suffering in jail, being tortured over just trying to exercise their constitutional rights peacefully. Not to mention all the federal provocateurs that were involved. That's called entrapment. That's called illegal. But that's the state of where we're at right now in our government. Not to mention, there is evidence of laser weapons starting these fires in Los Angeles, just like took place in Maui that we spoke of, just like we took place in Maui. Also, there's been helicopters, Chinooks, and stuff also dropping incendiary devices also that have been caught by locals and reported in the news. Helicopters starting fires. Okay, so keep that in mind. LA mayor wanted 49 million fire department cuts last week. 49 million. See, this whole thing with the defund the police, which is the most idiocracy thing I've ever heard of in my life. It doesn't just extend to the police. That means to emergency services. That's police and fire department. Okay. This is pure idiocracy. This is pure stupid. If you defund your police and your emergency services, who in the hell do you expect to come save your ass when you need help in an emergency? There's nobody. Okay. So, I mean, you can't have it both ways. Now, reforms and improving police and all, that's one thing. But defunding police and first responders and firefighters is not the answer. That's a liberal tactic because they want chaos. They want destruction. All right. Mel Gibson discusses whether devastating LA fires were intentional. By the way, Mel Gibson's house burnt down in these fires. So he's got a case to say. Many celebrities lost their homes. Chris Pratt's house burnt up. Steven Spielberg's house burnt up. A lot of these houses have burnt up. Okay. I'm going to switch gears here for a short second because there's something important I want to cover real quickly. All right. Meta scraps DEI programs, according to Zuckerberg. Okay. We all know about this. We all know the drama that's been causing. And unfortunately, you see the results of this right now when you put this as your leadership. All right. When that becomes your priority, I actually watched a video where if I had more time, I would have tried to throw it on here, but I was really rushed for time. I was having some computer problems. But that said, technical problems. But that said, I watched a video where they were talking to these women about trying to improve the fire department. This is before the fires. And they said they didn't care about improving the fire department. They only cared about hiring more women to be firefighters. Wrong answer. Wrong answers. We need the appropriate people to be able to do the jobs, not just political correctness, which is another communist liberal tactic. Since we're talking about that, this woman who's in charge of that, all right, she is a literal card-carrying communist, like straight out admitted card-holding communist. If you recall, our country was built on the fundamental principles of hating communism, because communism only wants the destruction of liberty, of freedom, of free speech, all right, of all the things that we hold. Communism is our enemy.
Yep.
Yet We have communism running our running the censorship right now in the mainstream media. We've got it running censorship now on platforms like YouTube and other platforms. All right. And that's what I'm fixing to get into. All right. You need to do away with communism. Censorship is the opposite of free speech. It believes that you are stupid and can't decide for yourself and tries to limit what information is able to be given to you. So Mark Zuckerberg comes out on Facebook saying that they're going to revamp Facebook for free speech and free expression. In other words, they're going to do away with censorship. I'm holding my breath on that one, but still I'm in the hope, right? He already put this up. He goes on a Joe Rogan show to say that the Biden administration was screaming and cursing at them to want to do censorship to the American people. Okay. In other words, he was saying he was being forced. Let's check this
These
out.
people from the Biden administration would call up our team and like scream at them and curse, and it's like these documents it's all kind of out there.
Did you record any of those phone calls?
I don't think we but I think
I want to listen.
I mean, there are emails. the emails are published. It's all kind of out there, and they're like, and basically it just got to this point where we were like, no, we're not gonna take down things that are true. That's ridiculous.
I think what he's saying there is pretty contradictory, because the fact is that he hired former FBI agents to come and work for him as part of the whole censorship platform. So he really can't just, deflect the blame onto the government, because he agreed to be a part of the censorship platform.
Yep. Oh, he's a spineless twit. During when Hillary was running for president, the WikiLeaks sent emails out that he sent to Hillary saying, "Hey, contact me and work with me. I can help to get you votes." So he's just pandering he's scared now because of the new political administration that's coming in that's anti-censorship. So he's been called out on it. He's trying to get ahead of it. But leading to my point, look at this. Oh, wow. Look at this. Bizarre. YouTube CEO says YouTube is a bastion of free speech. Well, guess what? I got to call bullshit on that. All right. Bullshit on that. All right. Something I've been noticing on my channel for the last year, my old channel on Dogman Cams, dude, after the first year, I had over 5,000 subscribers, and it was going up 50 subscribers per month consistently. All right. Now I've started this new channel over a year now, and this channel I think is a whole lot better than Dogman Cams was, even though I love Dogman Cams, and it's a shame that it was taken away from me in the way that it was, which was dishonest, although we've tried to make peace and move on from that point with all parties involved. But that said, which I think is for the best, but that said, it was in my opinion, unjustly taken away from me, my channel. And I've started this one, and I started this channel with over 700 subscribers already when I started this channel, because of the fact that people were following me over from my old channel of 5,000 plus. All right. So, and in that time, I've just now reached 1,000 subscribers on this channel. And a couple of things I've been following on this channel is that every time I get new subscribers, within about 24 hours, the same number of subscribers is subtracted from my channel. And it happens consistently. I've been following it for a year. So if I get 2-3 new subscribers, 24 hours, 2-3 subscribers are retracted. So they keep me in the same pigeonhole. And it very slowly has gone from 700 now to over 1,000. All right. Just very slowly, very slowly. Now, recently, something else I've caught YouTube doing is not only, and I've had so many of my fans contact me and say, man, I keep having to resubscribe to your show. They automatically cancel my subscription, and I've got to go back, and I've had to do it multiple times. Some of them have told me. So now I've caught them not only removing my subscribers, But now they're starting to remove views from my channel as well. And I caught them. So right here, one day after my last episode, I had 431 views within 24 hours. Okay, 431 views. Then 3 days, after 3 days, look, I got 415. Instead of 431, I got 415 after 3 days. 3 days. You see what I'm saying? So, and then not only that, and another one past this, I found on my second to last, my first show here on New Orleans, 36. I showed they went back and subtracted views from it on another one that I have proof of later. And then here's something else I found from Facebook. Yes, YouTube can remove views from videos that are considered fake or invalid. All right. So, in other words, and I don't meet any of the criteria that they listed right there, but they don't like the content of what I'm putting out. They don't like the content of what I'm saying. Therefore, they are. And even in that article I just put up, they even said, "Oh, you won't even notice. You won't even notice that we remove views." And the reason why is because they do it a little bit at a time, you know. And that way you don't catch on to it as much or as often. I don't know if they've been doing that in the past. I know that they've been removing subscribers. So when you have this guy sitting here saying that they're a bastion of free speech, I gotta call complete bullshit on that. That is wrong. That is a lie. That is not the truth. And it's evil and it's communism. It's communism. The censorship is communism. I got a strike on one of my channels that we did together last time. Yeah. We didn't say anything that wasn't the truth or was wrong. It's communism. It's communist censorship. Did nothing wrong. You can take that strike and shove it up your ass. I did nothing wrong.
I had the same thing happened to me a couple of days ago where, you know, I did a live stream actually showing actual evidence. We were talking about, you know, the California fires and talking about DEI, and you know, I got a strike for it. And then yesterday, you know, I posted a video on TikTok and actually basically explaining Operation Clean Slate, and they took they kicked me off of that platform. I have a secondary account, but I told folks, I said, listen, I'm not playing their games anymore. I'm flat out done. I will have a secondary account only for messages only, but I won't be posting any videos. And, you know,
and that's why I started. I'm uploading my stuff to X now because of that. And if they want to keep giving me strikes and everything, well, fine, I'll just move my platform to other places. Yeah. So yeah, I hear you. It's getting really bad with the censorship. It's getting really bad. One thing I want to show people as far as some of the stuff that's going on with these fires in California. All right, check this out.
And that right there is what they call an all-weather capability high-power weapon systems.
That's it. The people are not aware that we have super advanced technology now. Yeah. That technology was used to destroy Lahaina in Hawaii and Maui. Okay. They use that technology. Okay. And they're using that technology not just in Lahaina, but around the world. It's been used in Canada. It's been used in Europe. All right. And now we see it's being used in LA.
That second part of the video that was added on, that was actually my video, my original video that I had actually uploaded or given it to a friend to upload it on TikTok when I was down in Wheeler, Texas. This was on the south side of Wheeler, Texas. and I was at a gas station talking to a couple of people about the Panhandle fire that I was investigating, and we had heard some weird sounds in the sky, sounds like a drone. And so I pulled out my camera and I started recording, and that's what the footage that I was able to recover from that. So
Crazy.
yeah.
Crazy. Okay, globalist controlled federal agencies falsely claim Trump supporters are planning violent attacks during a disputed election. I think that's actually an old article that got caught up in here. Proof that the Democratic Party crime syndicate intentionally burned LA to the ground using. Okay, I already had that one up there too. Sorry, some of this, I was having technical difficulties, so some of this is overlapping a little bit. Elon Musk responded to Alex Jones's claims that the Democratic deep state is responsible for catastrophic fires in Los Angeles. And basically, to sum that up, you can look up this article. Elon Musk was saying that Jones is absolutely right, that that's the truth of what's going on. Okay. Breaking, iconic actor James Woods confirms homeowners insurance policies were canceled months before the massive Palisades, California neighborhood was destroyed in historic firestorms. That's not a coincidence.
No, and one of the things is years ago, I I used to trade on the stock market quite often, and I've made some pretty good amount of money. But one of the stocks I acquired quite a bit oftentimes was insurance companies. And because I have a little bit of foresight about insurance companies, this is something that people don't really actually realize is insurance companies are actually ahead of the curve. Now, their portfolio is actually managed by BlackRock, right? So BlackRock manages like 40% of all of the portfolios around the world, okay? And insurance companies actually do know scientific, they actually get the real scientific data. Here's a good example. You know how they said, well, global climate change is happening and the oceans are rising and all this stuff. Now, that was really true. Why would the insurance companies continue to insure homes along the Florida coast? They do this because they actually know the actual statistics. They also know the actual scientific reports and studies. So they know that the ocean is not really rising, not significantly. We're talking like maybe an inch every couple of years, and then it drops. So the insurance companies are way ahead of the curve, and they know about certain events that are going to take place that's going to be a financial catastrophe for them. So in order for them to save some money, this is where they get into canceling insurance policies, or they change the actual insurance policies. Like, I'll give you a good example. Like in my area, I went through, Progressive Insurance, right? So Progressive Insurance is actually owned by the DNC, okay? And during that time, they had actually sent me a letter saying, hey, we're changing the policy. We're no longer going to insure you if there is a nuclear strike, if there's an actual invasion, if there's aliens, an alien invasion, right? Which was
they actually put that in there, an alien invasion.
Yeah, we're not gonna cover. I mean, there was a list of things, and I looked at that, and I as a insurance a homeowner who has insurance premiums on my house, I look at that and I go, okay, what is it that the insurance companies know? Do they know that these manufactured events are going to take place, and that my home could possibly be destroyed because of it? Okay. Now, for years we've been told aliens were a conspiracy theory. Why all of a sudden is insurance company coming out saying, well, we will not cover you if there's an alien invasion?
Right.
Okay. So you can't have it both ways,
That's crazy wild.
Yeah.
They're actually putting in alien. That's the first I've heard of that. They're putting actually alien invasion into like your home insurance policy. What do they know? I mean, you don't put that kind of stuff in there for no reason. Just like there's states that it's illegal for you to shoot a Bigfoot. Why? How is that possible if Bigfoot doesn't actually exist? And it's because it does. It's not a joke. They don't write that in there just to be funny. All right. So James Woods, a lot of actors have come out that have lost their homes. A lot of high-end actors have lost their homes. Harrison Ford was talking about having the police bring him back to his house after the fire had rolled through to see if there was anything left of his house. Now, something else I think is I didn't really put up a lot of material for this side of it, but something else that you have to consider here that some people are bringing up, and if I had more time, I would have added videos to this. But that is, a lot of people are bringing up Diddy. Diddy and all the controversy with that. Well, it's awfully funny that a whole lot of houses that are in the vicinity of Diddy's have been destroyed, and some people are claiming that was created by very powerful people to destroy evidence.
Yep.
Evidence not just of Diddy, but of these surrounding homes that had things like, hidden rooms in them where illegal activities were taking place. So, don't think that Diddy going down with this, that he is the mastermind of all this. He's a puppet being used by higher ups, probably political and intelligence agencies, I would argue, and I'm sure there are high names, just like Epstein. I mean, Diddy is literally the Hollywood Epstein, right? And if you had all those people on the list going to Epstein's, imagine all the stuff that happened at the Diddy parties. In fact, there was a thing recently about how under the Playboy Mansion, they found all these hidden tunnels to like 10 different celebrity homes nearby. What do you think that's done for? That's not just for private access. That's so that illegal activity can be done away from prying eyes. Okay? That's what that's about. So there is a portion of this that could have actually been to destroy evidence. So I wouldn't doubt that. But also on top of that, you see the whole insurance steal with all this going on. So that's another major part of this. And the next major key to this is this. Well,
I actually have a theory on this.
Go ahead.
Again, it's just a theory.
Throw it out.
But I really do think that this particular individual that's in the picture, I don't believe that he's what the media is portraying him as a homeless guy. Now, how many homeless guys you know running around with a butane torch lighting up things? Zero. Here's what we do know. We do know that there are over 1,400 Al Qaeda members, operatives within the United States sleeper cells, right? And he actually does fit the profile of an Al Qaeda terrorist. Yep. Now, will they actually come out and say he's an Al Qaeda terrorist?
No, even if they knew he was, even if he said Allah Akbar and said he was an Al Qaeda terrorist, the news won't say that.
No, they're gonna cover this because they're gonna cover it up. They're not gonna talk about it because this is not what people need to know. That how our nation is compromised. Right here at the moment. Sarah Adams, who used to be a CIA targeter, I spoke extensively about how they know that Al Qaeda, who was previously run by Osama bin Laden, is now been taken over by his son. His son has brokered a deal with the Taliban and ISIS, and the Taliban are giving false information to U.S. intelligence agencies, and they have been training Al Qaeda and other factions within Al Qaeda to go to America, right? There's been thousands and thousands of images showing these individuals coming across the border, okay? And there's also images of them actually smuggling in U.S. weapons that were sent to Ukraine, right? So all of these things, we know that the enemy is not at the door. The enemy is already in our countries. They're right outside our homes, and they're sleeper cells, and they've been put into places like this guy here to go around and set fires anywhere and everywhere he can. Now, typically, when you look at a fire outbreak in one area, your local fire departments are going to be able to be trained to be able to go and put these fires out. Now, the fact that we know that this gentleman here has been going around setting fires, and the fact that the citizens actually took control of that situation and he was arrested, we're not going to hear anymore about this in the mainstream media. They're going to make this disappear. And I'm pretty sure that their masters that are behind this are already upset that this broke into the news, right? So now they've got to do a cover-up, right? So the more cover-up as we go along, and we probably won't hear anymore about this guy. But what's interesting is with Facebook Meta, if you take the image of that person's face, if you can get a really good image and, put it through Facebook Meta, you just might be able to actually determine who this guy is. But again, I don't believe Zuckerberg is on the side of freedom. I still believe that his algorithm is still going to be set in place to try to suppress any information on incidents like this. I've had several Facebook accounts where I have actually posted the truth, has shown actual evidence of things in the past, and all that information got suppressed very quickly, and I've lost those accounts. So I don't buy that for one second that Zuckerberg is going to not do the things that he says he's not going to do, and that's why he's deflecting the blame on the Biden administration when we all know that he was complicit in all these activities to begin with. So don't be too surprised if this story ends up getting buried and forgotten, and then of course replaced with something else.
Right. Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I would add to that my belief is that it was Western intelligence agencies that actually created Al Qaeda, ISIS, and Al Qaeda, and all that stuff, and that it was for the purpose of what we're seeing happen right now.
And here's another thing that a lot of people don't realize is Al Qaeda has actually had meetings with Xi Jinping, the leader of China, several times over the last 10, 15 years. So we know that Al Qaeda is actually working in tandem with China's agenda.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if they're an enemy created against the U.S., then they're going to be working with our other enemies for sure. Yeah, and that's how it works. The enemy of your enemy is your friend, So yeah, we have provocateurs going on. Going back here because California fighter fighters forced to use water bags. That's women's purses, okay? That they're calling water bags, literal women's purses, because the hydrants are dry and because they don't have hoses a lot of times because the state donated them to the Ukraine before the fire. All right. So not a coincidence. Learn the administrative warfare, economic terrorism being used by the Democratic Party and leftists, all right, worldwide. So this is to create a greater situation, and that's what we're trying to bring awareness to. Okay. LA firefighters could cost up to $150 million, but don't worry, because the Biden administration has sworn they're going to pay back every single penny of that, further bankrupting an already bankrupt United States because of all the money that we're sending to finance the Ukraine war, which, by the way, Trump just came out recently and said it's the U.S. that started that war. Yeah. And that's the truth. The U.S., NATO started the war with Russia, using the Ukraine as a proxy. We started it. We're funding it. It's the U.S. attacking Russia. And we would not tolerate Russia using Mexico or Canada to do the same thing to us. So why should Russia tolerate it when we're doing that same thing to them? It's not right. It's not right. Not to mention it's full of neo-Nazis, Muslims, and all kinds of other things, So,
this sounds so familiar. Like we go back in the past, take a look. What happened in Rome? Rome funded the Dramatic War. They used Germany as a proxy war to steal and embezzle as much gold as they possibly could before the collapse of Rome. And when Rome was at the height of its civilization, there was 250 million people. And when Rome fell, there was only 25 million.
Yep. And it fell because of unregulated, out of control immigration and open borders.
Exactly. And
that's why Rome fell. And they're using the same playbook to destroy our country on purpose.
And they also did the same thing that we've been doing here, is where they have actually been demoralizing the military, the police departments, first responders. They take budgeting away from that. So
kick out all the white people. In fact, I heard a guy this week say that he applied to be a firefighter in Los Angeles, and they straight out told him no because you're white.
Yeah,
and that was years ago. That wasn't right now. That was like a long time ago.
They told him come back in 7 years, and then reapply, and he was in line with somebody else who was a brown color. And he said, "When did you apply?" And I said, "Oh, yesterday." "Oh, well, they told me I had to wait 7 years."
Right.
But that didn't mean he got the job,
Yeah. No, but they specifically told him it was because he's white. He was the wrong color.
Yep.
So right here, the wildfires could cost up to $150 million. And like I said, Biden said he's going to pay it all back. And the reason why, and another major reason why these fires are taking place in the first place, is because of this major key. Slash and burn. The elites have planned on turning Los Angeles into a high-tech surveillance state, quote unquote, 15-minute smart city since 2020. And now you see.
Here's what's interesting. So there's actually a list. You can go online, you can research this, but there's actually a list that shows actually all of the U.S. cities that volunteered to become a 15-minute smart city. This is a policy that was sold to them through the World Economic Forum, who was then have been taken over by China since December of 2001, because they would like the idea of China's policy instituted in America. This is the soft takeover, or I like to call it the Trojan horse.
Right. So what you're seeing here is Biden said he's going to pay it all back. So he's going to rebuild everything, but they're going to rebuild it to their initial plans of the 15-minute smart cities that they want for their globalist New World Order plan, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the key reasons why all of this was done. This is why you see the lasers setting off fires. Mm-hmm. This is why houses that are in key areas that they're just going to steal from people, just like they did stealing property in Lahaina. That was some of the most expensive and valuable property and land in the world, but the families wouldn't give it up because it was their heritage, it was their family honor. And so what do? They just burned them all out, and under emergency powers saying, we're stealing it, we're stealing the land.
We're doing eminent domain. We're going to take the land. We're going to give you a $750 loan, but you're going to have to pay that back with interest.
Right. And so that's what's really going on here. That's the whole motive. When you follow police work, detective work, investigations, you look for patterns and you look for motive. Well, we've given you the patterns in the beginning of this video, and now we're explaining the motives. And there's multiple motives, like destroying evidence, okay? But ultimately, it's to bring this in, and they're going to get paid to build all this. They're getting paid back for it, all right? He already committed that the Biden administration's already committed. They're gonna pay this back. They're gonna pay for it, and that means we pay for that, okay? Now, if that's not enough, following last week's $2.5 billion to Ukraine, Biden decides to send another $500 million. See, one thing that the Biden administration is trying to do is, before they leave office, they're trying to cause as much damage, especially economic damage, as they can to this country for Trump to walk into with his administration. Like shutting off all the gas and oil and stuff like that we've seen the Biden administration just sign up for this week, which Trump said he's going to try to undo, but Biden's done it in such a way that he's making it very hard for the administration to undo. All right. And in trying to also enact emergency powers to do all that. It's all corruption. It's all corruption. These people are vicious snakes that we have got to get out of the garden. Now, going back and touching on censorship for a minute, this is a video by a former CIA agent. Love this guy. Got a lot of vibrato.
Now, there are certain things that you can't say, or the moderators will come after you. Now, the same people behind those moderators is the same people that want to ban TikTok, because they don't want you making memes like that. Who are those people? Who are those people that don't want you talking about certain things? What are those certain things that you can't talk about? Think about it. What are those certain things that you can never talk about? See, if you can't talk about them, you can't possibly be thinking about them. The same people who don't believe you have a right to speak for yourselves don't believe you have a right to think for yourselves. And the people that don't believe you have a right to think for yourselves don't believe you have a right to be alive. Understand that. They don't believe you have a right to.
They don't believe you have a right to anything. And that's the truth. What he's talking about is warning that we are going down a communistic path, that Americanism and free speech is about not censoring what you have to say. Everyone has a voice. And whether you agree with it or disagree with it, people have a right to say it. You're not directly inciting violence. You're not directly inciting anyone to be hurt. That's not what we're talking about. But what we're talking about is you should have a right to be able to disagree with the mainstream media. You should be able to have a right to talk about things that people say you're not allowed to talk about. Nothing should be not allowed to talk about. Nothing in a free country, in a republic.
Here's how you know if you're being censorship. When you go on social media, just ask a very provocative question, something that's going to provoke critical thinking among the masses, and watch how quickly that question gets taken down or suppressed. This is how you know you're being censored.
Yep. Here's a quick video I'm going to show up real quick. This is a little bit unrelated, but still connected. Everyone's talking about Israel and the whole Zionism and all that kind of stuff, people taking sides, yada, yada, yada. Here's something that I wanted to point out about that, because I think it's very important for Americans to understand.
If we see the full implementation of the Noahide laws in America, wouldn't that mean in a practical sense that people who quote certain passages of the Bible, especially in the New Testament, would be arrested and imprisoned in America?
Yes.
You would be killed for that.
Well,
you could be killed for it.
Could be, yes.
So see, they're talking about Muslims coming over here and trying to force us into their Sharia law, which is what they historically do when they take over countries by multiplying like rabbits within an open borders. But that said, even here, people are always arguing about what's going on with Israel and Palestine, and I'm not jumping into that debate. I think there's atrocities that are being done to both sides, but people always want to talk about how great Israel is for America and stuff like that, and that's not necessarily true either. You can be put to death by their government for talking about Jesus and the Bible. All right. That's no different than living under Islamic law, where you can be put to death for talking about Jesus and the Bible. It's two sides of the same coin. You know, we're in America, again, we value free speech and liberty. You know, that you're not put to death or even censored for having your opinion or your beliefs. And just because people disagree with your beliefs doesn't mean that you're disseminating false information or disinformation. That's only censorship. It's only censorship. People should have the right to decide for themselves what they want to hear, what they want to listen to, and what they want to believe. And Shawn can tell you too, working in intelligence, you listen to all sides, including what your enemies have to say and what they believe. And then you make your own assessments.
Yeah,
so it's not about censoring.
We do profiles on individuals, and we do profile characterizations on certain maybe certain groups of people within that faction, right? And we assess the information. We take everything with a grain of salt, but often sometimes it kind of leaves those clues as to what their behaviors are, because your behavior is always the indication of what you actually believe in. So we, we also know that in counterintelligence that oftentimes the enemy is going to put stuff out. They're going to say one thing, but they're going to do something completely different. And that's kind of a strategy, MO strategy that the enemy of America constantly does all the time. And now we see it with our political leaders. We see it with the Biden administration, Gavin Newsom administration. We see it with J.B. Pritzker's administration. We see it with Kathy Hochul administration, right? So the problem is that they have used the power of television, and I call it television, right? It's all about programming the minds of 337 million Americans to project an image or project an idea and the outcome of that idea. That everything is fine, everything is okay, but on top of that, they're using chemical warfare. They're using sodium fluoride in our water to calcify our pineal glands, so you're not going to become an independent thinker who's going to criticize and pick things apart and try to figure out what is their agenda, or what are they trying to accomplish, right?
Hydrofluoric acid.
Yeah. So, and everything that's been done over the years has been done to destroy the very foundation of America. What is the foundation? It's the traditional family. It's the traditional nucleus family. It's easier to rule over a nation of individuals than it is to rule over a nation of families. And they've done such a good job with the corporate law systems to implement policies, not laws, but policies into place to punish the American people. And we have a lot of bad state actors that have either immigrated over here or through legal means, or they are caught up in scandals. We see a lot of scandals going on every day. You could just go onto the news and click it, and you'll see some kind of scandal between a politician or a judge or a lawyer or somebody within the system who has been taking bribes to perform certain duties that are not constitutional.
Are you talking about the judge that just sentenced Trump to 134 felony counts that his daughter's making, over $2 million in donations? Yeah, there no conflict of interest there, right?
Right.
Not to mention that several attorneys have said that it's the greatest injustice they've ever seen in their life, and will absolutely be overturned in appeals if there's not other just completely corrupt and morally compromised judges. But now we're finding that too. They're weaponizing the judicial system and using that to target political opponents.
Yeah, for years.
Yeah,
Here's a good example. Like myself, I worked as a military contractor doing armed security for national and state level facilities. Okay, some facilities that I've worked at, I can't really go into the details about them or the locations, but I can tell you is that you're under certain strict responsibilities. Like, number one, you can't be on social media. If you are on social media, that's fine, but you can't post anything that's inflammatory or that violates, confidentiality agreements or medical side of things, or anything that would implicate your location or what you're doing. And you can't conflate anything. It's more like posting little puppy videos, or during at a time I was like posting stupid videos of the American flag waving in the air, playing patriotic songs. That's it. Right. On my very first TikTok account, I had 17 million followers. I have 4 videos. That's it. That's all it was, just pictures of the American flag. No, that's all I posted. Right. I never reposted anything else. It's just those stupid 4 videos. And so the thing that people need to understand is that, when you're dealing with a system that's been put into place since the 50s, with the agenda of covering up and suppressing information, they don't want you to know about. They don't want you to have a critical thinking skill and going, I got questions, right? They don't want that. They just want you to be compliant, forget about it, move on, just focus on going to work and paying income tax, by the way, which is illegal, and continuously go down this, this path in life where you're going to own nothing and you're going to be happy. That's the ultimate.
You mean Carl Schwab's right? You're going to eat the bugs.
Right. And this is all China's agenda. This is really all China's agenda. That's all
communist globalist for sure. Yeah.
And it's something that people need to understand is, when I worked in security, there were things that I've seen, there were things I've heard, there's things that are coming out. They're coming out little by little. All this information is getting put out there. And I have contacts still within the government that have been sending me some stuff. Like, here's a good example, like the TR-3B Astra and the Mantra, which is an anti-gravitational vehicle. And I've known about this vehicle for years because I've actually seen these vehicles. I've actually been on these vehicles. I kind of have a general concept of how these things work. And I've seen them in action. Now, I couldn't really talk about it for many years, but when I was able to get the footage from S1, I started, okay, well, this is a problem now, because this is not a state secret where it's meant to protect us. This is a state secret meant to actually cause harm and do damage to the American lives, and to come further on to force the compliance of the American people for the communist agenda, which is their one world agenda plan, right?
Yeah, I call it the globalist communist agenda. Yeah. Because because the politicians, not just in the US, but worldwide, that are behind this are seeking to create a globalist one world government.
Exactly.
And they're using a form of neo-communism and Marxism mixed together in order to try to accomplish this.
Yeah, you're going to see that a lot more here in Europe. You won't see that in China. You won't see the neo-Marxism in China. You won't see it in a lot of communist countries. But they're going to use the neo-Nazi or neo-Marxism propaganda against the very people who live in a free state, in a free country. Because
and I think one of the biggest things that we need to address on this too is our education system. The education system in the United States has been compromised, and it now teaches communist, Marxist ideologies, especially colleges, but now even the lower schools.
Yeah, this has been going on since 1913, when the Rockefeller family first instituted the National Public Education School Board.
That's it.
And from that point on, it started to fall into the hands of World Economic Forum policies that came about. And over the years, we can actually track it back to about right after World War II. We can actually track that back. We can actually see policies, not laws, but policies that were put into place in the public education school system, which is why we see even more notable people who have worked in the government at some level at some point are coming out and they're saying, we have been told a lie for all these years, and here is the truth. There was believe it or not, there was actually a YouTube video out there. This was a conversation between a retired former CIA officer who had been a station chief. The CIA had actually tried to kill him, but instead they ended up putting him into prison. He was in prison for a while. He got out. He's libertarian. He believes in the freedom of speech, believes in the Constitution. And he's speaking to another younger CIA guy with, the big frizzly, hair. And he used to be a CIA targeter. And
wait, I saw this movie. It was called Safe House, right? With Denzel Washington and Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah. And so he's having a conversation.
It's very similar to that.
He was talking to this younger CIA guy who left because the CIA does not like the traditional family core values, right? They want individuals with no ties to relationship ties to anybody, right? Oftentimes the CIA actually targets a lot of orphans to come and work for them because they don't have any family ties to anybody.
James Bond. The James Bond character was an orphan for that very purpose.
Yeah. So he's having this conversation with him about the actual liberties. He's actually talking about the actual Constitution. This younger guy is saying, "Oh, the Constitution is written for the government." He's like, "No, dude, you go back and read it." And it's very explicit, very carefully. He says, "We, the people, for the people, by the people, not
under God,
for the government, by the government."
Yeah.
Nowhere does it say that in there. And so this younger guy is kind of sitting there just in awe and shock because he was a byproduct of the Obama education, and he's sitting there going, just realize, you see the wheels turning in his head like, I need to go back. I need to really do my studies. But even during that whole time, he was constantly trying to have this argument with him, trying to prove that he's right and this older CIA guy was wrong. And even when he tried to, he had no defense whatsoever because he has no facts. And he obviously does not have any constitutional studies because the older guy says, listen, back in my days, we actually had a thing called civics. And civics actually shows you, based on the Constitution, what the responsibilities of the government and the government officials, okay?
And the responsibility of the people.
Exactly.
You have eternal vigilance against that government.
Yep.
And to hold them accountable.
Exactly. And, that's the thing that people need to realize is that we can't fall asleep anymore. We can't be lax. We can't just say, oh, this is climate change. And you got to throw all that out the window. Number one, we have no control over the weather. Absolutely no control. However, the government has been manipulating the weather to do what it wants it to do, which is to cause destruction. We know this because Lyndon B. Johnson was at a university giving a speech about how they have come to the realization that they have the power to harness to manipulate weather. And he basically said he who has the ability to manipulate the weather can manipulate the outcome of any war scenario, right? So that we do know, and that we know that that's the keystone piece of evidence. You've got a sitting president saying this to college students or university students. And then when you start to follow that timeline as to what DARPA has actually had in their possession, all this technology and what they've done with it, all the way up to this point, we know that the government has the capability to cause mass destruction like we're seeing in Texas.
We can create hurricanes. We can destroy hurricanes. We can direct hurricanes. We can make them stronger. We can make them weaker. We can cause earthquakes.
Yep.
And now we can start fires.
And we can even start hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico, just pop them out of the blue, right?
Yep.
Like we've seen with Hurricane Helene. That's never been done before. I mean, if you go back and look at all the hurricanes in history, they've always come off the coast of Africa. Okay. And the big thing is, and when I was down in Texas investigating the Panhandle fire, it was really interesting because you start to find patterns. And when you start to look at the patterns and say, okay, well, based on scientific research, we know that this is not a natural event. So you go back to the point of origin, and then you start scanning those areas and start looking for telltale signs that the physical manifestations that come from these direct energy weapons, that come from the Dragon Ball eggs that, is filled with potassium pomegranate, and then they inject it with glycol before they drop it, right?
Yeah, and look, for the audience that doesn't know, that Shawn's referring to, he made a documentary film about the Texas Panhandle and the fires, the wildfires that were there. Shawn went on the ground in person to investigate those and made a documentary film about it. And look, that ties into this next video clip I'm going to show real quick, and then we'll jump right back into talking about your documentary. Is that good?
That's fine.
Okay, check this out.
Around the world, there's actual...
It's having trouble.
Around the world, there's...
It's not playing. What the heck? I'm clicking. I got it queued up.
Around the world, there's actual real G-sides going on, right? People being unalive for absolutely zero reason. Zero reason.
I think my signal's lagging.
Around the world, there's actual real G-sides going on, right? People being unalive for absolutely...
I tell you. I've got this queued up. It's not playing.
Around the world, there's actual real G-sides going on, right?
Oh, well, I can't get it to play. There was two things. One, I was trying to show this clip, and it's talking about how it's not just America that we've got going on with these kind of problems right now, that 50,000 Christians
around the world,
were murdered just for being
G-sides
Christian
going on,
in
right?
Africa by Muslims.
People being unalive for absolutely...
So that was something else I wanted to point out. But on top of that, I had another video tying in all these different wildfires that have been going on lately, including the Panhandle one, and then I was going to use that to segue into your documentary. But go ahead and talk about your documentary, and I'll see if I can't fix this on my end.
Okay. So, the Panhandle documentary is going to get into the meats and potatoes of how the fire started and why. Here's what we do know. We know that lithium is the new gold rush. We know that China's been gunning for this. The BRICS organization has actually been gunning for this. This goes back about 10 years ago. One of the big places they've been trying to acquire one of the largest lithium mines is actually in South Africa. We also do know that in the United States, this is one of the reasons why we're seeing these spy balloons from China. Okay. Understand what they're actually doing is they're using LiDAR technology to actually penetrate the ground to see what's below the ground. And they get these readings and they feed this back to their Chinese satellite that goes back down to China. And what they're doing, they're taking an assessment of where the lithiums are. And one of the big things that we see is and you can go back to the 2030 agenda from the World Economic Forum book that John was actually showing. But actually ties into this. This is where they want to create 15-minute smart cities. In order to create smart cities, you've got to have enough battery storage to be able to withstand. It's not just the amount of electricity storage, but be able to handle the electricity coming in, electricity going out, right? So your traditional lead acid batteries are not built for that. They're built for mass storage and then small amount of usage that comes out of it. Where lithium batteries are actually designed to take in the electricity capacity to full, and while it's using the electricity at a mass level, it's still able to recapture any electricity that's coming in. So the lithium itself is a very, very dangerous process by which they have to actually dig it up out of the ground. So think of it like Grand Canyon, for example. If everything were to come about and the deep state were to, and China, for example, were to get their hands on the U.S. lands, which is another reason why they're buying up a lot of lands here in the U.S., is for the mining rights. It's not just to completely dissolve the United States. That's the number one first part of the agenda. The second part of it into it is where we're going to mine land and turn the United States into a wasteland. There won't be a living, breathing thing in the United States. Why? Because there won't be anything here. And by mining of the process of it, it becomes so toxic that plants, animals, and human beings cannot live in those areas without a special suit that actually can filter out a lot of these byproduct particles. And so while I was down in Texas, one of the big things that we ran into was I was actually being followed by an FBI agent from the Washington Field House during that whole entire time. So at one point, I did end up having a kind of a face-to-face interaction. But I told him, I said, you can continue to waste American taxpayer dollars following around because, number one, I'm not breaking any laws. Two, what you're doing is unconstitutional. And three, I really don't give a fuck. I said, I'm going to get this story. I'm going to figure this out. And when I do, I'm going to break the story. And there's nothing you can do to stop me. And we had gone to the actual locations. We had actually taken videos. We've taken pictures. We've had satellite imageries. We've done comparable analysis of those. We were actually able to track the directions of the fires, right? And we've got the early images, the very first early images of the fires. And we have done a comparable analysis with retired firefighters to get their, to show them this and then ask them to say, hey, is this a natural indication of a fire? And they come out and say, no, this is not. This is not normal. It's not pattern, because nothing in nature runs in a straight line. And we were actually able to show footage of an F-35 Gen 2 fighter pilot that was equipped with high power weapon, all weather capability laser system that actually set the state of Texas on fire in the Panhandle. So we have the indelible proof of it. We also have proof of Biden actually talking about the destruction of the fires in Lahaina and how his administration was behind it and how they need to get behind stopping people from painting their houses with the UN blue colors, right? Because their houses were protected. So when the beams hit it, it neutralizes the effect of the beams. If you go down to Chile, the same thing was happening down in Chile. So people down there in Chile were like, okay, they figured it out. They didn't need social media to figure it out. They figured it out. They said, oh, okay, this destroyed this village. So they got the UN blue paint and they started painting their whole entire houses with it. And guess what? Nothing happened to them because it had no effect on them. So, but there are more other ways that the high power weapon systems are. There's 7 different parts to that whole system. And one of them I did show in the Panhandle documentary, and I've got another a podcast episode actually shows and talks about DTR-3B Astra that was used in Iraq, also as well as Afghanistan. And the one in Iraq actually shows the craft coming in very quietly, very stealthily, and it was actually protecting a convoy of U.S. military. And there was a group of insurgents up ahead, off to the side of the road, waiting to ambush them. And this Astra used kind of like they call it the rod of God, right? The rod of God is essentially what it is. It's a burst of electricity, and when this thing zaps it out, you see the flash of light coming from the craft, but the next thing you see is the ground completely imploding in several different little places, kind of a cluster, right? So there's actually no payload that's actually coming out of those things. It's just pure energy. And that's how they were able to destroy the pockets of resistance over there in Iraq. This was an S1 video that was recorded. And then, of course, it was not given to the public. But I was able to get the footage from somebody who works within the government agency to put this out there to actually show people the truth that this is not an AI video, number one. Number two, we do have the ability to generate these crafts, create them. We've had this tech for a long, long time. And more importantly, that they are now using these to start these fires. It's just as well. We've seen it in Lahaina, we've seen it in California, we've seen it in New Mexico, we've seen it in Texas, we've seen it in Chile. We've also seen it in the Carolinas as well. So people need to understand that no one's safe. No one is immune from this. And a lot of people need to do is go back and watch the Panhandle documentary. And they need to take that before their U.S. sitting congressmen, their state politicians, and they need to let them know and be aware that the enemy is already inside the gates. And they're using these weapons to destroy the very last vestige of this country.
Right. So I'm gonna see if I added it to the stage now. So let me see. I added a different one. Let me see if I can play the video now.
Looking identical, but I want to tell you guys that this is one of thousands. Do you remember the Texas Panhandle fire? It burnt down 1.3 million acres. Well, it just so happened that these fires occurred off US 60, but nobody knew that they were putting a lithium refinement plant where? Well, right off US 60. I also found articles where it states where the highest numbers of concentrate are found near the Amarillo Arch. Feel free to pause and read for this because I found it interesting, which sounds exactly what wildcatters did to the Native Americans when discovering oil fields, but then finding out that's exactly what's happening. See, what a lot of people don't know is before Trump left office, he rushed a mine through approval process right on the Oregon-Nevada border, which if you didn't know is Thacker Pass in Humboldt County. Thacker Pass is an Indian reservation, and there have been countless lawsuits fighting this mine. And not only did they lose at the lawsuits and the judge granted that lithium can be mined on Thacker Pass, which you can see is located right here, the most bizarre looking wildfire took place right here. Several articles stated that Oregon wildfire creates its own weather as it becomes the largest active blaze in the US, which is odd because we heard nothing from the media. And although I have dozens more of examples of this occurring in the US, specifically on Indian reservations in Wyoming, which they just so happen to find lithium deposits in the exact location, and in places like Idaho, map the minerals. I mean, what are the odds? I mean, really guys, what are the odds? It just so happens U.S. Department of Defense provided $15 million in funding to Jerovis Mining USA to drill for cobalt in Idaho. The funding came from the additional Ukraine Supplemental Appropriations Act. But I want Americans to know we are not the only ones questioning this. Bolivia is as well. Feel free to pause and read because this article is interesting. And I saw zero media coverage on how the Amazon rainforest burnt down 37.4 million acres, which is interesting because the lithium triangle opened opportunities for the Biden administration, which, if you didn't know, that's where the lithium triangle is located. And what are the odds that China and Russia are involved as well? Possibly. And here I thought we all weren't getting along. And also imagine my surprise when I realized that numerous other countries like Kazakhstan's going through this as well, in which they stated that they have so much lithium, even South Korea is interested. And that sounded so familiar to me, because California did the same thing. And like I said, I'm seeing this happen in numerous other places, including Yellowknife, Canada, where they not only had a massive wildfire, but they also raised $30 million for lithium exploration. Another area in Canada where 4 fires were burning, but also where they secured Chinese financing for rare metals. What are the odds of water shortage in the exact location? Same thing happened in James Bay. And then what do you know? There's lithium there too. And Canada had probably some of the most gnarly wildfires I saw on my radar. Just insane. But what do you guys think is happening here? Because I'm really starting to see some patterns here. Aren't you? Way too many countries going through the same thing at once. You gotta kind of ask yourself, you know? What are the odds? And personally, for me, how much land has been lost in America, the fact that the media has been completely silent all year round. And if you want me to be honest, I have as much evidence as there have been wildfires.
So yeah, it just shows. I was trying to reiterate what Shawn was stating with the lithium connection. Lithium basically is the future fuel, if you will. You know, it used to be coal, then it was electricity. Now lithium is the next major thing that all the world's governments are fighting over. And that's what we see going on. And we basically seeing, global elites in our government misusing their power to basically steal these lithium mines and to get access to them. Just like, remember the hurricane that was, insanely unnaturally guided through Tennessee and South Carolina just happened to destroy an area that Kamala Harris signed off for a lithium mine that her husband sits on the board of. And she was the one that was in charge of signing off the okay on those mines. You think that's a coincidence? No. That's corruption. That's corruption. And that's what we're seeing. And that's what's tying in a lot of these things together. I want to see if I can play this other video. And it's not letting me. I'm gonna see if I can delete it. And actually, I'll try and put it up the way I did this one because it's a different way. It's off topic a little bit, but I want to make sure I throw it on there just because I think it's super important for people to be aware of. And that's about Christians being killed for being Christian, which a lot of people are not aware of. This is not something you hear in the news.
Around the world, there's actual real G-sides going on, right? People being unalive for absolutely zero reason. Zero reason. Over 50,000 Christians blanked in Nigeria by Islamist extremists. Over 50,000. For absolutely zero reason. Now, Israel is in Gaza because a organization decided to invade their country and take over 250 civilian hostages back to Gaza, which is a war crime. You cannot take civilians as prisoners of war. They therefore declared war with Israel on that day. So Israel is doing what any other country would do, which is go in and get their people. And defend their people and defend their country. And they have taken every measure that they possibly can to ensure that they minimize civilian casualties. That means that
Well, on the Israel Gaza side, there have been incredible human injustices on both sides. Both sides. I believe what's going on there is they're looking for any excuse they can to take back the Dome of the Rock and the Holy Land there, so that they can rebuild their third temple, which they already have the plans for, and which they already have the calves for, that I covered in another video on the eclipse a while back, on the red heifers. They need the cows in order to purify the temple mound of having the Muslims that were there occupying the Great Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. So I believe that's absolutely a part of what we see going on, but I think there's human atrocities going on both sides. I mean, that's going on right now. But yes, the point of that was I wanted to show that you're not hearing in the news that there's Americans, not Americans, there are Christians being murdered, tortured, raped right now just for being Christian in other countries, and you're not hearing about it in the news. I'll give you another one. Look at what happened with our government literally helping Al-Qaeda take over Syria. Do you know the result of that? The result of that is the torture, rape, and murder, slaughter of the Christians that live there. That's the result of that. So we've got thousands and thousands of Christians that are being raped, tortured, and murdered and slaughtered just for being Christian right now around the world. And yet these are the people we're bringing into our country, and wonder why our crime in the West is going through the roof. You know, it was reported in England. Oh, and hey, the England Prime Minister warned Americans, oh, we'll come after you if you talk about this stuff. Yeah, you know what? Kiss our ass. First Amendment. There was a town where over 1,400 young women were groomed, tortured, and raped by Muslims in England. And when the people did an outcry to the government to report this and to take action, the government came together and had a committee and said, oh, we're not taking any action. We don't find any cause here because it's part of the globalist communist agenda that's being spearheaded by the UK. And that is wrong, and it's evil of the UK government to do that. And to use, you see in all these Western countries, they put the immigrants' rights over the rights of the citizens. And that's done on purpose as weaponized replacement migration. Same thing's happening in Canada, where in these countries, you will go to jail for preaching about Jesus and the Bible. You will in the UK, and you will publicly in Canada, doing the same thing. And in the UK, they're putting people in prison for making comments in social media because it hurt someone's feelings and offended them. Well, you know what free speech is? It's the right to hurt your feelings. That's what free speech is. You don't have free speech if you don't have the right to offend somebody. And they're offending me, but no one cares if my values or rights are offended. It offends me when people go to jail for free speech. It offends me when a country puts immigrants' rights over the citizens. It offends me when young girls are tortured, groomed, and raped by immigrants, and a government covers it up to support their globalist agenda and weaponized takeover. That offends me.
This is all part of Operation Clean Slate.
Right.
And this is something that a lot of people need to understand. You know, it's coming to your front door, and it's going to be your politicians that are going to be complicit in these crimes, and they don't care about you. They're just the only thing they care about is having a seat or a position within this new global government, because they're going to try to make, you know, their lives easier. Well, they don't care about their fellow countrymen.
Right. Yeah, it has nothing to do with that. So, check this out. Whatever the price of the Chinese Revolution it was obviously succeeded not only in producing more efficient and dedicated administration, but also in fostering high moral and community of purpose. The social experiment in China under Chairman Mao, that's Mao Zedong's leadership, is one of the most important, successful in human history. Okay. Um, that is a very evil statement by the Rockefellers. All right. And that is part of this whole one world order takeover. In other words, the Rockefellers, put Mao Zedong into power. Mao Zedong, you ask people, who's the most evil person in the world? People always say this. They say it's Hitler. To conquer a nation, first disarm its citizens. Adolf Hitler. Why do you think the left is so concerned with wanting to take guns all the time? They don't care about abortion. They don't care about children, but they do care about taking away your guns. Why? Because when a government takes away a citizen's right to bear arms, it becomes a citizen's duty to take away a government's right to govern. Why? Why, you say? My stuff's acting slow. It's not coming up. When a nation mistrusts its citizens with guns, it's sending a clear message it no longer trusts its citizens. Such a government has evil plans. Evil plans. And what are those evil plans? Boom. I said boom. Children need to be taught the real history of the world. They need to know what happens in the past when only the government has guns. Tyranny. Tyranny. Tyranny is the result of that. Tyranny. I can't say it enough. No free man shall ever be debarred the use of arms. The strongest reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms at the least resort is to protect themselves against tyranny. 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 Tyranny in your own government. Your own government. Now, people always think this is the most evil man in history. It is not. It is Mao Zedong, who killed 1 billion of his own people. All right, 1 billion of his own people. What does he say? All political power comes from the barrel of a gun. The Communist Party, that's what we're talking about here, and in America, must command all the guns. That way, no guns can ever be used to command the party, the Communist Party, the ones that these people put into power, the ones that these people turned our education system into. Our country right now, our kids are being indoctrinated into neo-communism, Marxism, because the Rockefeller education system that created it, all for the manipulation and takeover, all for the Great Reset. See, Mao Zedong killed 1 billion of his own people to do the Great Plan, which was to remove people off of self-sufficient farms and force them into mega cities where they can be tracked and controlled. So the Great Reset, see, China was only a beta test created by the Rockefellers, right? So that they could create not the great plan of the beta test, but they could create their great build back better. All right. Their build back better, order out of chaos. If you want to know what order out of
the Rockefellers are also responsible for the creation of the Communist Party, the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia.
That took over Russia.
People don't understand what the effects of that are. Just go read the book called Child 55. That's actually going to give you a grand detail of how those who were self-sufficient were cut off from food and starvation. They starved to kill over 2 million people because they didn't want to participate or comply with the government's request for people to be living in the cities rather than selling off their lands to the government. And because of the communist regime, a lot of people died because of it.
Right.
And, this is, we really can't make it any more clear what communism does to people. They're, once they start controlling education, they start controlling weak-minded people. And those weak-minded people are the ones that are going to shame other strong people into complying. And when those strong people are gone, there's nobody there to save you.
That's it. There's no one there to save you. There is a famous quote from the man of all seasons, St. Thomas More, and one of his best friends, the Duke of Norfolk, went to him and he says, "Come on, Thomas, sign this thing for the king, for friendship's sake, so he could get his divorce with who was it? Catherine of Aragon." And Thomas More says, "And when I go to hell for disobeying my conscience, are you going to follow me there for friendship's sake?" And he says, "Oh, Thomas, you jest." He says, "You would give the devil his due in court." And Thomas says, "Absolutely, I would give the devil his due in court. Because if you abolish the laws, even to pursue the devil, and you abolish all the laws in the land in that pursuit, and the devil turns back his tail and focuses his attention on you, what do you have left standing to protect you? Nothing, because everything has been abolished. Therefore, you just abolished yourself." You see, that's real world. That's real world. So, I'm trying to put stuff up. My system's lagging behind. So the firestorm update: National Guard has been called up in California to stop looting and assist fire departments, okay, that have lost control even of their emergency broadcast system. Their emergency broadcast system's been telling people to evacuate who aren't even near the fires, who don't need to evacuate. And they're saying, "Oh, that's an accident." It's not an accident. No. But the big point here is the National Guard's being called up. That's going to segue us into our next topic with Shawn about home security. Okay, also Humvees, machine guns, hardware, bayonets stolen from military storage warehouses near Los Angeles. Imagine that. You think that's a big quinker dinker? I think a nodder. So, and in here, Jay Dyer, elites strategy to use immigration and Islam to destroy the West. Yes, that's a major theme I've been talking about. We should not be allowing these people into our country. But now, to change gears and segue into the second topic tonight, I think we've created a large picture with the background of crisis, who's behind it, what they use to create it, and where it's heading, and all these things. And then that brings us into our topic with Shawn about what can you do as far as home security. And Shawn happens, with his background, to be a home security expert. And I'll let him give you a little bio on that, and then he can go into some of his information and we can start covering that topic. So, Shawn, why don't you explain to people about how you got into the home security game and who you've done, like, not names, but, level of people you've done home security for, and then what that's led you to as far as your career, your books, etc.
So when I was working in the security sector, doing armed security as a military contractor, oftentimes I would, see a lot of reports on news about home invasions, burglaries happening. And I started to follow trends and patterns, and I have my own algorithm system that I utilize to actually see how the crime level was going to continue to rise. And in 2022, one of the analysis that I got was that crime was going to, property crimes and home crimes were going to increase exponentially by 5,000% all across the United States. And as we, get further into it, one of the things I did was I started up a business back in 2017, doing independent home security consulting. And I've had contracts with, Fortune 500 CEOs. I've had contracts with folks in Hollywood, and I've implemented methods and strategies to help them on how to do home security. And so I ended up taking to social media because I wanted to start teaching people all across the board on how to actually do home security. And during that, between 2017 up to about 2022, I spent about $70,000 being one of the biggest proponent critics when it comes to home security tools. And my job was simply to figure out what were the weaknesses of those particular devices, which ones are built more with quality, where are they coming from, the materials that are sourced for it. And I ended up writing a book that actually explains everything, but it's more of like a manual where you can actually take this book and read it and actually start applying some of the methods. So the same basic methods in the security industry. The first thing is you want to focus on prevention. If you can prevent your home from actually being broke into, you pretty much won the game. You've got your home fairly well secured, right? So the general idea is out of sight, out of mind, because oftentimes it's human error when and people end up getting their homes burglarized. I'll give you a good example. So oftentimes the way the bad guys conduct their operations is they always have somebody who's casing neighborhoods. They're casing and they're looking for certain things. Number one, at Christmas time, did you get a brand new TV for Christmas? If you did, what did you do with the cardboard box? Oftentimes people will put it out by the trash. This is a very good indication marker that you've got something that's nice. That's is some high value, right? So what they will often do is they will target your home for a burglary. So they were going to be watching your house. They're going to be watching, is your car still sitting in the driveway during the daytime? Oftentimes people work between the hours of 9 a.m. to about 3:30 p.m. So most of the time people are gone during those times. The burglars will dress up like as utility workers or, Mormon people that are going around trying to preach to Mormon or whatever. They're going to be dressed up in disguise. They're going to be looking for easy points of entry into your home. And they're going to be conducting what they call smash and grab. The rule of thumb is for them is 3 minutes. So they break into their home, break into somebody's house, they grab what they can, at 3 minutes to get out. And once they're out, they're into their vehicles and they're gone. They're going to take those things, they're either going to pawn them off or they're going to sell it to a buddy of theirs to get cash for it, quick cash. And that's their whole entire promise. On average, an American citizen that we've had as far as the FBI reports that come out every year, on average, Americans lose about $3,000 in a burglary event. So this is a multi-billion-dollar industry where we have the vast majority of times when burglaries are really high. It's often at times attributed to the Democrat politicians that are in power. I'll give you a good example. Like in my state of Illinois right now, we have criminals who are not being held in the jail cells before their trial because they call them impacted. They're impacted by by justice, right? So what they do is when they get caught breaking the law, they take them down to the station, they process them, and then they hand them a little piece of paper that tells them when they're due in court. Okay, so they kick them back out the street. Well, they're going to go back out tomorrow. They're going to turn around and rob somebody else's house, right? Or they're going to steal some car, or they're going to murder somebody. And then when they get arrested again, they don't hold them in jail. Instead, they go through the same process. They get processed. They get a piece of paper when they're due in court, and they're back out the door. And they keep repeating over and over and over. And so this is the reason why I wrote the book. So it's focused on prevention, deterring, and defense. Okay. Now, the deterring method is this is where we're going to get into human behavior and the use of the right kind of equipment. The defense side, this is where we get into what they call the Mossad defense. And this is where how you can be able to conduct a safe operation in your own home. Number one, you need to build a safe room, a room that not even the fire department can break into, right? But with the addition to that is the idea that you have a secondary exit. That if you need to leave, you can be able to leave. You're not getting trapped into your house.
You're not burned in, yeah.
Yeah, and inside your safe room, that's where you want, like, I'll give you a good example. So I don't use Wi-Fi cameras. I don't use cellular cameras. I used to, but I stopped using them once I found out that all those cameras are being manufactured in China, and they have an actual chip, an addition chip to the main server or the main chip, right? That actually allows the Chinese corporations, which are run essentially by the Chinese government, to be able to bypass any security features and be able to tap into your cameras and see outside, be able to see through your camera what's going on. We also know that the Ring company also violated the same things too. So I don't trust Wi-Fi cameras. I don't trust cellular cameras. They're very, very easy to hack into. However, closed circuit television cameras, that's a whole different story. And so, like in my safe room, I have my DVR, I have a big screen TV. I've also got, the cameras outside of my home and on the inside of my home. So they're doing constant surveillance recording 24/7. And the reason for this is so, if someone manages to break into my house, and which I say the remote possibility is like 1 in about 150 billion, okay? But if they manage to break into my home, and whether they're armed with a weapon or not, if you go back to the FBI statistics, then the number one method of beating and killing someone is the hands and feet, okay? It's not a gun, it's hands and feet. So once they've broken into your home, there's clear intention that they're there to do harm, right? This is where we get into kind of differentiate between a burglary and a home invasion. Home invasion, they're here to either hurt you or kill you. Burglaries are oftentimes just attributed to they're interested in what you have. They're not interested in you. But that doesn't mean that oftentimes we see where they think somebody's gone, they've broken into somebody's home, they start stealing stuff, and all of a sudden, grandma comes out around the corner and sees these people. They don't want grandma to identify them, so they'll assault the grandma, right? So people need to understand that the distinction, the difference between those two. And with home invasions, it usually is attributed to, and it used to be that if you were a drug dealer, oftentimes your rival drug dealers will try to come after that drug dealer, break in their home and kill them, and steal their drugs or whatever. But the general idea with home invasion is they're there to do harm. They're not there to make friends with you, right? So you get everybody. We do what they called a home invasion drills. My wife and my daughter and I, we ended up doing a production of creating a training video for that. But the idea is that you create a safe room. You have the capabilities of having eyes on the outside of your home and the inside of your home, and you can actually see what's going on. One other member of your family is on the phone with 911, calling the police. Now, when you are talking to the police, one of the big keystone points of this is this: you need to let them know that this is a home invasion. Second of all, you need to let them know exactly what they look like, where they are in your home. Let the dispatcher know, all your information, and if they're armed with a weapon or not. Now, oftentimes, as I tell them if something like this was happening, I would say, well, I don't know if they're armed with a weapon or not, but it looks like there appears that they might have something in their hands, because oftentimes they will use some kind of like a crowbar or something to get into the home. So that can be construed as a weapon, right? So I would let the dispatcher know this. Reason being is because when it comes to the police department, they prioritize the calls based on economic status. It depends on if you're, say, for example, if a bank is being robbed and you are having a home invasion, the police are going to spend, they're going to be redirected to the bank. Why? Because the banks have more of a monetary and financial value than you and your home does. So money and value of that money or the financial institution holds a greater weight over human life, which is your life and the family of your family, So you may not get the response from the police department right away. Instead, it could take half an hour, 45 minutes. But most home invasions, they last from anywhere from 3 minutes to about 8 minutes. Once it's done, the bad guys leave, and what's left is the damage. And by the time the cops get there, the crime has already been committed. It could, very well turn into a murder, right? So this is one of the issues that I have a problem with is just continuously watching the news all the time, watching people getting killed or bad things happening to people. And the education behind all of this has been whitewashed away by the Rockefellers back in 1913. That was one of the first things they started doing, was by taking control of a lot of the features of home security. And one of the things they did was they created what they call monitoring agencies. So they purchased the Pinkerton security firm. They ended up creating and making. They bought the Bell or the Bell Corporation, which is the phone company. And then they created a monitoring agencies, and there were several other ones created up until ADT. And you can go back and you can Google up on how many times ADT has failed for various different reasons. Monitoring companies are very expensive, and oftentimes they do is they talk about the convenience of a lot, just putting your security into somebody else's hands. And we see a lot of human error with this, which is contributed to a lot of their failures. But also we see a lot of product failure. And that's because the majority of their products that they get, it comes from China, which is built very low grade. And oftentimes you get so many false calls that in your city where you live, you need to find out whether or not if you're going to get charged for these false calls. A good example is the city of Seattle, Washington. They have a law in place that if there's a false call to your home, the city's going to charge you $500. And when ADT first came in, they made a promise that they would pay for all of those false calls. And when this tally got up to I think it was like around $850,000, because people couldn't afford to pay for these false calls because they've had multiple false calls, the cops stopped responding to all of these calls coming out to residential areas. But not to the banks, only to the residential areas. And the banks don't get charged for this. Why? Because they're a financial institution. They're providing revenue for the city. So the city is not going to charge them, but they're going to charge the residents. And so the residents took up arms and they said, okay, this is not working. So the city decided to ultimately ban ADT from coming into their city and providing services. And so a lot of the residents have to figure out, what do we do next? Because I don't have a monitoring company, so how do I protect my property? And this is where I kind of came into the picture, and I started teaching some people how to do their own home security. But that's why I wrote the book, is so you have a self-education where you can take that information and put it into practice, everything from prevention, deterring, and defense. So if you have an actual home invasion happening, and let's just say that I'll give you a scenario. So if my home was broken into, my wife, my daughter, and my other family members would go to the safe room. They would be on the phone with the 911 dispatcher. They would be watching the cameras. I would actually be armed with a gun. I would actually be on point to deal with whatever aggression is coming. And once that aggression comes, I'm going to deal with that threat, as I would, right, to stop that threat from getting any further than where they're at. Now, when the cops are on their way and they're en route, and the threat is neutralized, I'm going to take my family out of the safe room. We're going to go outside. I will not have my gun with me at this point because I know the threat's been neutralized. I'm going to have my gun placed on my kitchen table, completely disseminated, right? The mag out is clear, it's open, it's going to sit on the table, and I'm going to go outside. The very first responding officer that comes to your home is the one that's going to be investigating this crime, okay? So first impressions is everything. Allow him to go into your house, do what he has to do to clear to make sure there's no more threats. Once he comes out, understand this. He has got so much adrenaline running through him, and he's going to have to catch his breath. And when it comes time that he is talking to you, tell him only this. Listen, I've got the entire event on my camera. It's inside the house, in my safe room. I'll pull it up. I'll hit play, and you just watch. Allow him to do this because it's the first impression is everything. So once he sees the footage and he sees that this person had intent to come in and hurt and kill you, and you did what you had to do by making your family retreat to a safe room, well, number one is to create a distance, a barrier between you and the bad guy. But it allows you also at the same time to get into a defensive position. So when you do neutralize the threat, because the threat is coming and there is a threat, it's an imminent threat, the officer's going to see this. So what he's going to ask is he's going to pull out like a little flash drive, right? And he's going to want to get a copy of that. So give him the copy of it. He's going to give it to the district attorney. District attorney's actually going to review the footage. And once they see this, they're going to call back or contact the investigating officer and let them know, okay, this is a clear case of home invasion. And the occupants of that home, their lives were threatened. And this was met with force lawfully. And so we're going to continue to investigate this for now. But we're going to treat it as if this is a home invasion. So they will, there's a 50-50 chance they might take your gun. Okay. But chances are you're not going to go to jail. You're going to be able to stay home, enjoy your freedoms. They're going to remove the dead body. And they're going to go after anybody else that's in that video. And oftentimes when there is an actual home invasion, there's usually 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people. But that first person that comes through, that is a threat, and you eliminate that threat, I guarantee you all the other ones are going to turn around and run. But the thing is, they're on camera. So they're going to be putting out an APB for those individuals as well. And once they, they're going to tell you, okay, don't leave town for a while. They're going to be doing their investigation. And chances are when they're done with their investigation, they're going to rule it as a justifiable shooting because you were the homeowner, you were the occupant of the house, and your life was threatened. And that's what this book teaches people. So how to make how to apply the methods of prevention, deterring, and defense, and that how you can become a security expert by going around your home, looking for all of the problems, the weak points. I'm talking about areas that where it's not in the direct line of sight with the public. Maybe there's the window, that's old window, and you've had some problems with it, and it's easy to open or to break and you get into. Then you can go, okay, this is the things I need to fix on my house. I need to fix my door, or I need to fix my windows. But it's also going to give you some other information too on how you can strengthen those up so that it can become impenetrable from the outside. So this way that you don't have to worry about somebody sneaking in through the back window in the middle of the night, or this is kind of another issue that we've been kind of dealing with over the years is unlawful searches, right? So we have a lot of police officers circumventing the law to get bogus warrants, right? Or sometimes it's just human error that they'll end up conducting a raid on a house when it turns out that they were one number off. It was actually the house next door they were supposed to raid, and they end up raiding this house. And what has happened is the occupants in the home were killed subsequently by the police department because these people didn't know who was breaking into their home, and they were armed trying to protect their home. And the cops end up killing them because they had a gun in their hand, right? And so that's why I put the book together, is to teach people how to protect their homes. So in the long run, you're not going to have to deal with, say, a common error or mistake from the police department, or if that police department is tyrannical, you're going to make it impossible for them to breach your door without tearing your house apart, right? But it gives you and buys you time, so you can actually get on the phone, call your lawyer, call 911, do all the things that you need to do, so that if this is a lawful warrant, then you can have time to negotiate and to be able to leave your home safely without being shot. Because we have seen a lot of unlawful searches of homes that ended up in the result in the death or injury of people. And there was one particular case where the cops had thrown a flashbang into a window and landed in a baby's crib and went off. And now the baby's deaf and blind for the rest of his life, right? And those are kind of the issues that kind of hit home to me, because I don't want to see anybody have to go through something like this. Unfortunately, we live in a world today where we got the reality sets in, and we say, well, I'm not completely immune to this, and it could be just something like, for example, in England, if I post something on social media and the cops end up, breaking my door down just to come in and arrest me for posting something on social media. And so that's been something I've worked on for numbers of years, trying to teach people. I've had clients as far away as France. I've had clients in England. I've had clients in Germany, teaching them, different strategies. Every piece of property is completely different, so it's not built the same. For example, you might have a guy that's living on a farm, and he's got 250 acres of land. Before you can see the cops, or you can see people coming down the road for miles before they get to your place, as opposed to let's say you live in downtown Chicago or downtown New York, and you live in one of those high-rise buildings. Chances are you're not going to see the bad guys coming, because there's a lot of people there, and there's a lot of little apartments in one building. So your strategy is going to be a little bit different than, and especially what tools you're going to be using as well. And so that's why the book is there, is actually to help you figure this out, so you don't have to spend, $2,500 or $2,500 or $3,000 an hour for somebody like myself to come in and actually help you figure this out. So this is going to save you a lot of money, but this is a piece of education that, again, has been whitewashed by the Rockefeller family. This is another good reason why I've been blacklisted from the security community, is because of this book. I've actually won 3 awards, 3 literary awards, and I've won 1 award from the security community on this book, as regarded as the best home security book, manual instruction, that's ever been written.
Yeah, that's great. And also, Shawn has a second book as well.
Yes. So this is the ultimate home security book I was talking about. The first one is the ultimate, or the survivor's Bible. That actually gets into how do you survive any type of catastrophe. First you got to figure out in your area what type of natural disasters happen, right? Or even man-made manufactured disasters could happen. And then it gets into bugging in. How do you bug in properly? And he actually talks about bugging out the way you're supposed to bug out. not like a lot of some of these YouTube videos that they put out there about bugging out. They have a lot of dangerous information that's actually more harmful than being accurate, right? So I wanted to make sure that from you get a military's perspective on how to actually bug out. And the chances of you actually having to bug out is going to be pretty small, pretty slim. And those are going to be in conditions, for example, like what we saw in California with the wildfires going on, right? All the arsonists that are setting the fires. So a lot of these people have to leave. But did they have a plan in place ahead of time? Did they have a secondary location? Like we see some of these very wealthy people. We know they have a second home somewhere else, but do they have duplicates of a lot of the stuff that they have there in their second home? Chances are they probably did. But the common person doesn't. They're not thinking about, where do I go if something like this happens, right? Until it happens, and then they're kind of like, okay, do we have a plan? When do we bug out? The city is saying nothing yet, but we see this fire coming up over this hill is heading for us, right? We're talking a matter of minutes, maybe 20, 30 minutes before it gets to your place. But the city's not saying anything, right? They're not telling us to bug out. So the Survivor Survival is designed to actually help you make those good decisions, help you actually implement plans and put them in place. So when the time comes, if you have some kind of disaster happening, whether it's man-made or natural disaster, it's going to help you make the good decisions. So you're not just going to abandon your home just because, like John was showing earlier, where the emergency broadcast service was put out into an area that's around Los Angeles, but was not directly affected by the fire, telling these people to leave their homes, right? And what happened when those people left? The looters came in and started looting their homes. Okay. So I say this earnestly and honestly with people as best I can, is do not listen to what the government tells you. 9 out of 10 times they're lying to you. Okay. If you have to take whatever news that you see on your phone or on your TV with a grain of salt. You need to use some common sense. For example, if the news comes out and says there's a chemical spill south of me about 2 miles, okay, my first indication is I've got an actual book that I can identify by looking at that, and I can say, okay, this is what kind of car it is. It's got this kind of serial number on it. I go to my book and it actually shows me exactly what kind of car it is, a rail car. Number 2 is going to show me what kind of chemicals in there, right? If it's flammable, non-flammable, is it corrosive, is it acidic, or what type of properties they have. And if it's on fire and it's creating this cloud, now I need to understand where's this wind coming from and where's the wind going. So the wind is actually blowing that smoke further south. It doesn't make any sense for me to abandon my home just because emergency broadcast comes out and says, hey, you need to evacuate your home because, you're within the affected radius. I have to use sound judgment, but I also need to have sound tools. And that's why with the Survivor Survival, it's going to teach you about reconnaissance and surveillance, about how to escape and evade, which are military terms, and military education to help you kind of navigate and when do you need to leave, when you need to go, and
go bags.
Huh?
You cover go bags in that situation?
Yeah. So it goes even further into prepping. It goes into homesteading. So the idea is that when you're faced with a disaster, you're going from a disaster, surviving, and then from surviving to thriving. So learning about how to recover very quickly. But it's aimed to try to teach people, giving you the actual facts, the actual truth, when it comes to your survival needs.
Yeah, that's great. That's such an important topics for today, given the situations we're facing, whether it be, a grid down catastrophe situation, worst case scenario, or whether it be something like this, a local natural disaster like that took place in Tennessee with the hurricanes, Carolinas, and what we see going on with the wildfires in Texas and now in California. You don't know when you're going to have to, flee and grab and go. And that's why I brought up the something that's really common in not just intelligence communities, but among special forces and things like that, is they always have, we're always taught to have go bags. And you have, you have a ready bag for your, each person in your family weighted to, a weight they can withstand, but has all basic necessities, including money, food, communications, shelter, things like this, so that in a crisis, you got something you can grab and go with, including medical supplies and weapons.
Yeah, one of the things I've been doing for years and years is building my own bug out bags, right? And they can get pretty expensive,
I know. I've been doing them for years. It's crazy. Yeah. I just bought a new one for over $1,000, and that's not a kit. That's one I sourced myself, like piece by piece.
Yeah. And there's
new radio for my bug out bag.
I was able to find a company that actually builds bug out bags for not just for civilians, but they also build bug out bags for special forces. And the company is called BSO Survival .us, and I ended up partnering with them because I actually bought. They gave me what they called a go-to home bag. I'm gonna see if I can take my.
You said BSO Survival.us.
Yeah, so it's called BSO Survival. Let me see if I can pull that up. But this is what they call a get-to-home bag. It literally has everything that you could possibly think of. The only thing you might have to add to that is like your ham radios, right? And I bought that separate, but you can put it still has enough room. You can put a few things in here.
Was that right?
And the cool thing is it weighs like less than 2 pounds. So it's got a nice strap for it. You can put this on your back, or if you decide you want to purchase one of their bug out bags, they have a medical bag. They've got a regular bug out bag for 72 hours. They also have bug out bags that will, we're talking like long durations of time, could be 2 or 3 months, but you can take these, you can actually attach them to those. And the water filtration kit that they have in this I'm duly impressed. I bought Life Straw, but Life Straw gives you about 10 to 20,000 gallons, but this gives you about 50,000 gallons of water. Plus it's got, it's called a bladder bag. So you can put the bladder water bag inside the bag, and it's got a tube that comes out. You hook up your filtration tube to it, and you can just pull that right up and clip it to your shirt. You can pull it up. You can drink the water that's already in your backpack, so you don't have to go and bend down to the ground trying to drink water from the ground. But you have water on you already. So, but everything here is their focus on is quality. It's not a quantity issue. It's a quality issue. They also have on their website as well, I believe there's four training centers that they teamed up with. And these are all training centers that are owned by former Special Force members who train civilians on how to train as to when you're bugging out, depending on what terrain. They're located all over the United States, so there's different types of terrains. And so depending on where you live, you want to go to the closest one as to you, and you can get an idea on how to survive for 72 days. And you will get, as part of your training package, you will get one of these BSO survival backpacks that are outfitted with everything in it. I think this first day is a classroom you go through where they take all the stuff out. They tell you what it's for. and how it's used, and then you spend the next 3 days going on a hike and camping and all that stuff, and they teach you about how to start a fire, how to do it, be able to stay warm, how to operate covertly, like utilizing the gray man theory. And then I believe there's also another one they do, like urban survival skills, would actually teach you about navigating through a city without being seen, but yet you can see everybody else. But you can get from point A to point B, and they tell you about what things you're going to be faced with, some dangers and some challenges. So
yeah, urban kits are very different than wilderness or field kits. Completely different, and have different requirements. One thing I like for urban kit is a fallout kit, like if you're in a nuclear situation. And so I've got entire kits planned out just for a nuclear situation, as well as urban, as well as field, as well as tactical. I mean, there's too many kits.
Right. And it gets pretty expensive after a while trying to buy all these stuff, but
it gets expensive.
Yeah, I mean, I got 4 different bug out bags for. I've got one that's just a medical kit. I got one that's what they call the NBC. It's a nuclear biological chemical, a suit along with a respirator. I
just bought respirators, including they filter out contaminants that you would find like in protests, but then also even like I've got filters for contaminants for if you're in the woods and there's a fire, just like in California, because people don't understand how fast you can die from smoke inhalation.
Right. And one of the things I tell people is, go get yourself one of these painter's masks for, like, say, a wildfire situation. These will actually do you pretty good. They're pretty cheap. They're pretty inexpensive, and the filters are easy to replace. But as far as when you're dealing with like a nuclear radiation fallout, these are not going to save you. So you want to get the proper ones. They have NBC masks that are actually equipped with better filtration systems. So you're not actually breathing radionuclear or radioactive fallout waste. But it's better. And also too with that is, if you're stuck in that area, the best thing to do is hunker down in a building below ground level. Make sure you've got enough water, enough food for at least the next 3 to 6 weeks. And also make sure you get a Geiger counter. That's really, really a key strategy to have, because if you want to determine when it's time for you to leave and when it's safe to leave, okay, so oftentimes people think, well, it's been a couple of days. People are kind of getting antsy because they're confined into a small area, and oftentimes you see people kind of lose their shit and then run outside, and then they're contaminated, and then they bring that person back in, and then without realizing that they're contaminating everybody else down there. So having a Geiger counter that you can actually put, I don't want to say, you can put it up into your tree, the lead wire. You could bury that lead wire under the ground and have that come into your basement wall. That's sealed off, and you hook that up to your Geiger counter. And then you see that white snow outside, right? And you see everything is dead. So you're not going to want to go outside, but every day you're going to check that Geiger counter. You're going to keep a logbook and keep a record. Okay, so 6 o'clock this morning, it was talking about how many rads per minute, and there's 50,000 rads per minute. Okay, that's not safe for me to go outside just yet. So I'm going to wait, checking in 6 hours again. And eventually what's going to happen is you see that number is going to start dropping a little bit at a time, but it gets to a certain level where it's what's considered to be safe for humans to be able to go out and trapeze around, right? I usually wait until it falls about another 5 or 10,000 rats below that point. Then I'm going to put on my protective suit along with my NBC mask. And I'm already going to have a plan in place. Where am I going to go next before I even go outside? Because it doesn't make any sense to leave if you don't have a place to go to. And so you want to anticipate, okay, how far out can I go, right? Chances are cars are probably not going to work because the EMPs have destroyed the batteries or the electronics, or the cars got stolen. Chances are you're not going to be able to ride a horse because they've been contaminated with radiation. They're probably dead by the time you get to them. Their carcasses are just laying there, right? So what other methods of transportation do you have? So this is where the Survivor's Bible actually gets in talking about, okay, different methods of transportation. Some things you can casually go and buy and stock up and save. It's better to have this stuff on hand. You may not use it right now, but that doesn't mean that this mode of transportation, you may need it when the time comes, right? That's just kind of what I'm getting to. And so this is also talks about Faraday cages, how to build a successful Faraday cage for you in your home, for all your electronics. But it's also going to get into, like the reality of, let's just say there's a hypersonic nuclear missile. Say China sent one off, and it was way up in the stratosphere. And it's got on an average, say 800 kilotons of nuclear radiation. It blows up, and then essentially what happens is it creates an EMP shield, and then knocks out pretty much the entire United States, maybe parts of Canada, parts of Mexico. The government is going to have everything hardlined, right? And they're going to be hard shelled and protected. In the residential areas, they're going to be heavily impacted, and the only people who are going to be able to communicate is through ham radios, right? But even if a nuclear detonation actually happens close to the ground, and let's say you're kind of in the outer blast ring, and you've got you're in the path of their radiation fallout, okay? So when that happens, and your Geiger counter is going crazy, selling you 500,000 rads or 50,000 rads per minute or whatever, chances are you're not going to be able to use these because it's going to interfere with the radio signal. However, when another indication of when the levels start to fall, just like John says here, there's satellite phones too. Those would be very, very helpful. But just keep in mind, the radiation fallouts are going to affect, your CB radios. They are going to affect anything that's what they call radio signals. Now, satellite phones operate a little bit differently. They can still be affected with the communication, interference. But once those rad levels fall enough, then you can actually listen. I can turn this on and listen to some FM radio station channel. Right? I've got a book here that I put together is kind of like a diary or sort of sorts, and I write down all the radio stations up to 250 miles from me on FM channels, and so I can punch that in and say, okay, this one is 10 miles from me, so I can't get through for some reason. Okay, and I'm going to go to the next one, and eventually I can reach 200 miles on this. And I'm getting that radio station. That radio station is actually telling me and everybody else important information. So I can make good decisions just by listening. So chances are you're going to spend more time listening than you're actually going to be talking. But it's another good reason why you should go. You should take your ham radios license operator test. Get licensed at least on the novice level of it, right? So at least you have a base concept, you know how to speak on it, you know what the code words are for, how to talk the lingo to one person to another, right? Yeah, exactly. That's a really good idea to have a chart like that. That's going to give you all that important information. Also understand how ham radios work. What is a repeater? How does a repeater work? So there's it depends on what kind of systems you have. I mean, I have a digital system. I know some people that still have the World War II ham radios, right? And they they're working on an analog system. So, but the analog and digital can cohabit with one another. So, again, this is nice to have because when you go mobile, it's got the feature in here on the side. You can plug in and put on your headphones, and you can clip this onto your shirt, and you can listen while you're in motion. So,
Yep.
Let me just
go ahead. You're saying something?
Okay. I'm just going to try to confirm that website is correct.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Yeah, see, it's amazing information. One thing that can happen real quick to people that aren't used to being in this field is you can get overwhelmed really fast. So it's important to stick with basics, learn basics, and build up from there. But that's why books like Shawn's, books that he's talking about right now are so important, because they establish a good, comprehensive, basic idea for people to understand kind of the different things that they need to focus on in an organized way. It makes it a lot easier to digest than just even us sitting here talking about this stuff,
Yeah. So the website is actually survivalgear.us.
Survivalgear.us. Okay, so I got the wrong one
That's
up.
fine. I put that in a private chat there.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
And when you go on that page, they have like all kinds of crazy equipment. You can buy them one piece at a time. You can build your own kit, or you can actually reach out to them and say, hey, I live in this type of area. This is the geographic that I kind of deal with. I want a custom bug out bag for my area that, but this is kind of what I want. I see this equipment, I see that equipment, or whatever, and they will build you a custom bug out bag, right? And you can pay for it online. They'll send it to you. I mean, a lot of their stuff is Special Forces approved. They got a lot of insight from the Special Forces as well as to what kind of equipment and as far as what are the top priority things that you're going to need. Say urban carry is going to be very different than, let's say you live in Colorado and you've got to bug out into the mountains. Say from Denver, you're hiking it out, you're getting up in the mountains, and let's say Denver's been hit with a series of attacks from Al Qaeda or something like this. So once you get out into the woods, your equipment is going to be very different than what it is to be urban equipment, right? So if you've got your spouse, your girlfriend, or boyfriend, or whatever with you, you're going to want one bag for them and one bag for yourself, right? So you might need something along the lines of the medical equipment on top of everything else you might have.
You want bags for your kids too, and including in case of separation.
Right, exactly. So, and I guess in any kind of scenario, if I had to bug out, this is my family and I do this once a month. We did this for years. And we used to do bug out drills. And the idea was, how fast can we go from our house to get, say, 5 miles outside of the city, right? So we time ourselves, and then we take different routes to get to where we're trying to get to, right? So 5 miles, different routes. And the reason being is so we get familiarized with the roads. We're familiarized with the people in those areas as well. And we have, we call it kind of a rust period. So we're going to bug out to that period, that location. And we might have to stop for the night. We're going to rust in that area. And then from that point, we're going to go to our final destination. But before we just take off, this is where we get into getting on the utilizing ham radios. If cell phones still work, we'll be utilizing social media or calling, our friends or family that we're going to be going to. What are their do they have any problems in their area, or if they know any problems in between where I'm at and where they're at? There might be other survivors coming, and they might be telling them, hey, this happened or that happened, or this is what we saw, or whatever. So you're getting all the intel information ahead of time before you just take off. So you may decide, okay, I'm not going to go in that direction. So I have options A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And so you're going to try to get intel on option B before you go. And once you figure out where you're going to go, then you take off. But you're going to have only what you can carry. But the idea is to have all that equipment in one spot. So when you have to leave, you grab it, you're out the door. The idea is to be out of your house in 30 seconds. So you're going to get ahead of the traffic, right? But it also, the survivor spirals also, it helps you to make the decisions, good decisions, on how to get ahead of the curve. So you're not waiting till the last minute and then deciding, oh, okay, everybody else leave, maybe I better leave too. And you get stuck on an interstate. Why? Because some idiot who panicked, like most people will panic, gets into a car accident, rolls the car, and it's now blocking the road. And you got a bunch of heart-bleeding liberals in the front of that crowd saying, well, we need to call 911 and then we need to save this person's life, but the person's pretty much dead already. So what do? How are you going to, keep the traffic moving, right? And so you run into some problems along the way. But one of the things that the book will tell you is that in an event of a catastrophe like this, you're going to see first responders going home, grabbing their families, and bugging out. But chances are most of those first responders will not be present. We saw this in New Orleans when the hurricane hit down there. They left the city. They abandoned the fire stations, the ambulances, the police departments. They abandoned their cars or their building. And so we saw looters would come and take the form of or disguise as police officers or fire department, and they would go around and start looting people's homes, start robbing.
Not just that, we actually had NYPD police officers that were looting stuff themselves. They got busted on more than one occasion.
Yeah. So
look, let me put it this way: the quality of every police department is not the same. And when you've got police officers in very liberal cities, you tend to have very liberal police officers that, they're not much better than the criminals themselves oftentimes, which is sad to say.
Yeah.
You won't find any state troopers doing that kind of mess, I promise you. If so, we would handle up on them real quick.
For sure. Yeah. And and the one lesson that we can learn from the hurricane that slammed in New Orleans. So about 2-3 months after, and there was like a long freaking pause where FEMA does not come in, but FEMA was stopping everybody from actually coming into the city, trying to help rescue people there. A lot of the good folks in New Orleans were going to the New Orleans football stadium because, that was the only place they could go with this dry ground. And a lot of the other people that were, stuck in their homes, right? But the problem really started to kind of compound when the looters started rioting, started robbing people, right? Burning buildings and shit. Then the response to that is that the National Guard, along with the captain of the police department, they got all the police officers, National Guardsmen, and they came in and they started going around the outer edge of the city, and they started confiscating people's guns as if they were the effing problems to begin.
Yeah, they did. The government was using it to run. The whole thing was used to run drills for the future collapses that they were planning to do. But yeah, they were going. The military was going door to door and confiscating guns. not from bad areas, but from good areas where people just stayed behind to protect their stuff. And it was illegal, and they were doing it by force and gunpoint. People didn't get their guns back. It was completely unconstitutional, and it was completely wrong and completely evil. But there's a whole lot of stuff that wouldn't happen in that time. And I tell you, for people that got out of line at that time, you just wound up in a pile of bodies behind that Superdome. And there was a pile of bodies behind that Superdome. You didn't want to mess around at that time because no one was playing around. You caused any trouble, you went away.
Yeah, and so I'm kind of one of those.
For those people, sorry to cut you off, but those people that give Vault a hard time, you ask Dark Waters how he and Vault met. They met during Katrina when Dark Waters was hiding for his life in a building. And Vault, and there was a gang that got a hold of DW and wanted to and were very close to possibly unaliving him. And he was in fear for his life. And Vault happened to be on that floor, and Vault was doing a security contract detail, military contract detail, where he was a contractor, and he was guarding people on that floor. And he saw what was going on, and Vault handled up on that gang and saved DW's life. That's how they became friends. So you ask DW if Vault ever served as a contractor, because he's going to tell you yes. Plus, for all the people that cry and write me and they say, I've also talking to 2 other people that served with Vault overseas in conflict that gave many details that I've been able to verify some of. So yeah. And here's another thing: when you know people that have been in the shit, as they say, you can tell real quickly if they're BSing or not about the stuff that they've done. I mean, even about how you wear gear, can conduct your weapons, all kinds of just little bitty stuff that it would be extremely difficult for someone making that stuff up to know about. And he's the real deal. And I stand behind my people and my friends. So sorry.
Yeah. I've had that when I first got into military contracting. It was I was working on the barges when they were going through. Shit, my mind's gone blank. We were dealing with a lot of the Houthis pirates that were, you guys probably seen the movies with Tom Hanks.
Yeah. What was it, Captain something or other? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was based on a true story, by the way, ended by the Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
Which would probably be Field Team 6.
So the response to that was they ended up hiring military contractors to go out and protect these ships, and my company was one that was tasked to. Well, we got a contract to go out there and actually protect the ships and stuff from these pirates and stuff. And we had like different types of weapon systems that we were using, but the common ones that we were using was a 50 caliber rifle. We were using M4s. We were using water hoses. We were doing everything we can to stop these pirates from trying to overtake these ships. But then my wife, of course, calls me and says, "You've been gone for 2 years. I'd like you to come back home, and so I don't care what kind of job you take." So I got reassigned instead. So I was a little bit closer to home and spent the rest of my time working at home, just guarding institutions and stuff. But I'm telling you, it was pretty wild time. But you learn a lot of tricks along the way, and you kind of figure out how to keep people safe. And and you really don't have the patience for bleeding liberal hearts. We can get very aggressive at times. Sometimes we have to take charge of situations. We have to know when to take charge and when to follow. And that's something that a lot of the American mainstream public don't understand is, just because you have an opinion about something, it doesn't always make it. It's not always going to be something that's going to save your life, right? people can go on social media and speculate all kinds of different stuff, but when you get faced with something of this magnitude in places like this, and you come home, you're applying these methods to, your survival strategy or to your home security or whatever it is. You got to have that one person leading charge and making these plans and putting these plans into practice. That's why I taught my family. Whether it's bugging out, we have bug out drills. We do them every month. We have home intruder drills. We do them every month. We have fire drills. We do those. Same thing with tornado drills, right? Even bomb drills. We do bomb drills too, because I understand the reality of the way the world works, and no one is immune to any of these things or any of these catastrophes. And that's why it's really important to at least have the books on hand to say, okay, well, you've got time to read, so don't just, flip through the pages, scan them, and maybe, listen to podcasts like this, you get little pieces of information. And anything else, go to training centers. There's civilian training centers that are run by special forces. Go through those. It's worth the money, because if you do find yourself in the situation, you're like, I know exactly what to do in this situation. You're not going to be the guy that's going to be like, well, we need to wait until the government tells us to leave, and then by then it's too late. And then you're sitting there in regret because your family members are dead, or they're starving, or you're having to stand in some line in downtown waiting for hours just to get the scraps of food just to survive. So,
yep. Yeah, and like I said, the idea is start simple and build up from there. Start simple with storable foods, security, arms, meds, and that kind of stuff. Build out go bags if you have to have. Come up with strategy plans like Shawn talked about, as far as where do you go from here to there, and in what type of environment, what type of situation. There are ways to do it on the cheap, and there are ways that you're gonna cost some money. Instead, like, I'll give you an example. Instead of buying, really expensive emergency 20-year shelf life foods, you can make your own a lot cheaper. Just getting beans and rice, like dark beans and rice in a 1-to-1 ratio. And that gives you all the amino, in a 1-to-1 ratio approximate, that gives you all the amino acids you need for the blockchains to repair muscle and damaged tissue, which is critical when it comes to food. You're going to need, also I found pumpkin seeds give you almost everything that you don't get from rice and beans, like zinc, magnesium, sea salt, which is real salt, not table salt. We die very quickly without salt. And then fats, you got to have fats. Shelf stable fats are difficult, but you got coconut butter, you got ghee, are two of the best right there. Now, certified butter, those are shelf stable. Lard is good if it's organic. It's more shelf stable, not quite shelf stable, but it lasts a good while. If you have it sealed up, that you buy the beans and rice, and you go to like Cabela's or something and buy a vacuum sealer. You vacuum seal that stuff right, it'll last just as long as this 10, 20-year food shelf life stuff.
Yeah, because it's all the oxygen out.
That's it.
One of the things I used to do back in the day was to get those little oxygen absorbers.
Yep.
But what I realized what was even more better was just by having, I would put like about an inch of salt at the bottom of the bag. And then I would put like a piece of cardboard over it, and then I would put my food in there, and then suck all the oxygen out, seal it up. And that salt will actually keep everything as dry as possible, lasts for almost forever. So you can reuse the salt for different things. You can put it on your food, or if you need to de-ice your car or something, or
another trick I tell people is, keep a constant supply of perishables like potatoes, tomatoes, onions, garlic, peppers. little simple things like that, simple shelf stables, because those are very easy to regrow. You can plant those or go, especially potatoes. You've had entire civilizations that survived on potatoes alone. Carbs are very difficult to find in nature. All right. So carbs are potatoes are a way to go. Like I said, keep a fresh supply, make sure it's regular and fresh, and you can regrow those. You can cut up a potato and all the little parts will grow more potatoes, and you can exponentially grow them out that way. And they last and store a long time if they're kept in a dry, a dark, cool environment, like a root cellar, which is something else amazing for people that we're talking about, shelters like bomb shelters and stuff like that, fallout shelters. Hey, the easiest, simplest way is to build a root cellar, and you can modify that simply to act as a bomb or radiological shelter, right?
Yep. One of the things about fallout shelters, I did a little research on that 2 years ago, but so back in 1963, I can't remember what year it was when we had the Cuban Missile Crisis. And so the U.S. government invested millions of dollars into building radioactive fallout shelters all across America. And then I believe this was like the 1975 or something like this, they stopped funding it. So a lot of these fallout shelters ended up getting, used as storage rooms for like business buildings and different things. So chances are you're not going to have an active fallout shelter available. It's not going to be stocked with all the amenities you need. So, so as far as, creating your own fallout shelter, one of the best ways to do it is just build a root cellar. Our grandparents, great grandparents, and so on, founding fathers, they knew this. This was a way of life that they built root cellars because they didn't have refrigerators back then. But you're below the ground and you're easily concealable. So you don't have to worry about, detection, number one. Number two, you've got all the food that you need right there. But you're definitely going to need, some type of toiletry system put in. That's going to be a major issue. I would say build your root cellars, 20 by 20, because it gives you enough space for at least 3 to 4 people. You're going to need something for, sleeping, something for eating, all the basic essentials. So, but at least
when you plan for food and preparations, always plan for more people because you're always going to have more people. So that was a good point Shawn just brought up. Yeah,
and there's a company since the 60s when they first started building these fallout shelters, they were building bunkers. But I know there's a company down in Texas that's all they do is they build nuclear fallout shelters.
I know what company you're talking about.
Yeah, Atlas. And
Atlas. That's what I was going to say. Atlas.
And Atlas, they can customize.
They're one of the biggest names in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they can build them any size you want. But I can tell you that some of their nicer ones, say for like a three bedroom house size, it's going to cost you, or you're talking about at least $120,000. It's like
120, 130 for their smallest ones. By the time you add everything up and have it delivered and put in the ground and everything else,
it's going to cost you quite a bit. Yeah. And I've seen some of their other ones that they did where, when I was down in Texas, I got a chance to see one where they were putting one into the ground, and they actually built the house right on top of it. Right. So the entrance to that bunker was hidden in the house, which is pretty fantastic. But they have a secondary exit, so if they do have to evacuate or do have to leave, they're able to get out. So which is really cool. But
yeah, that's awesome. They're a great company. I've followed them for years, and they're, like I said, they're one of the best. And they have they're really, even though it is not cheap, they have some of the better prices out there as far as that game, because people in those fields, I mean, the prices can get astronomical really quick. It's really for the major rich, but they've got some affordable systems, and they'll work with you on financing and stuff like that as well. So they I think they offer one of the best out there.
Yeah, they actually have built-in generator systems that go into those bunkers too.
They're modular, where you can add anything you want or need to them. But yeah, a lot of them you can add a generator system to them, which is always a good thing. But yeah, there's a lot of different areas and needs. But like Shawn said, on the cheap, and doing some work yourself, build a root cellar. You can modify a root cellar to make do for those situations. Would it be the most comfortable or most ideal? Maybe not, but you can do it, and you can do it cheaper. Just like I said about storable foods, you can do it and do it cheaper than spending huge amounts of money buying. And tell you what, a lot of that pre-made stuff isn't super healthy for your body either, especially over long periods of time. They've got a lot of added chemicals, and the food quality is not always the greatest in that stuff for these foods. So
some you get into some of the country or companies like the Patriot, the 4 Patriot or USA Patriot or whatever.
Yeah,
they're going to be using a lot of salt in their food. Like a lot of the MREs in the military, they're loaded with so much salt. It's absolutely crazy.
You will get sick eating MREs, military MREs. Your health will decline very quickly. They are not healthy at all.
No, and that's why we process our own foods. We put them in ball glass jars as well. We make a lot of this really easy stuff. We take a crock pot and we'll put beef. We'll make beef stew or something.
Yep, that's awesome.
And
Harvest Right is a company that sells the dehydrators, not dehydrator, I'm sorry, freeze dried, and you can freeze dry your own food that way, and all you got to do is rehydrate it. You've got 2 kinds. You've got dehydrated, you got freeze dried. Freeze dried, you can dehydrate things on your own, like jerky and stuff like that. But freeze dried is the best because it preserves all the flavor and all the nutrients. So that's the best. Yeah. And it's cheaper. Sometimes their machines start at like 2,000, 2,300, 2,400. Sometimes it'd be cheaper to buy that than it would be to do storable foods and build your own. That's much healthier and tastes better.
If you get freeze dried machine or dehydrator, those really go along with the concept of bugging out. You're going to need some food source that you can take with you. Canning your jars, like your ball glass jars of food in there, they're not going to go so well with trying to bug out because you got that added extra weight and
glass. Yeah,
glass is kind of fragile, so you want something that's going to be sealed up, and you can open it up very easily, pull it out, eat it, and it gives you some sustainable food until you can get to your next final location. So
yeah, with that dehydrator, you can make prepackaged meals, and you can carry a lot of food without a lot of weight.
Yeah, and one thing I try to tell people is that if you're going to get a bug out bag, you don't want it to exceed more than a third of your own weight, at least. I know for people like me, I'm 51 years old. If I were to put on a rot sack from when I was in the military, we're talking 85 pounds or more.
Oh yeah,
I'm going to get maybe 50 steps into it, and I'm going to be like, nope, I'm dumping this shit, right? So
plus back problems and everything else. Yeah.
Most of America is completely out of shape. So folks need to learn that, you don't need 60 pounds of food. Chances are you're going to find some mode of transportation. You're going to try to find your way out and get to where you need to go. And the whole point of bugging out is getting from point A to point B as absolutely as fast as you possibly can. So when you get there, just sit down, make yourself a nice meal for your family. But during that course of that time, some people think, oh, if I'm going to bug out, I'm going to go from let's say Ohio all the way to Colorado. No, you're going to bug out. You're going to want to bug out, say, to Indiana or to Illinois. You want to be within 1 day of driving distance. But once you get to that point, okay, sure. Go round up some more supplies, go buy some more supplies if you need to. And then you can go from where you are and kind of make your way to Colorado, per se. So move during the daytime, you find someplace to crash at night. So it's really a good idea to have, friends that you can go to, that you can trust, as part of your bug out route. And you can talk to them about it ahead of time. Say, well, listen, this is something I'm doing. So if I ever need to bug out, could I come to your place for the night? Maybe offer them something, in exchange to sleep there. At least this way, you and your family will have a place to rest, at least. So the next day, then you can, continue to move forward. But you want to get as far away from wherever it is as fast as you can. So you don't want to be trying to carry everything that's in the house, because you're going to waste so much time just trying to get everything into your car. So you got a bug out bag. Okay, grab that. Take your rifle, take your gun, whatever. And you're in all your stuff essentials are in there. So your food, all your equipment, and you just throw it in there and you're ready to go. Just take off and go and get ahead of the curve. So
I'm working on a survival book myself, and in that I came up with what I call a 3-tier system. So your first tier or last tier, either way you want to look at it, would be what you can just carry on your person, and that's about it, and including a go bag. And then the second tier would be, what can I shove in my vehicle? Since it's coming with me, what kind of supplies can I add that, which is just more of what I'd be carrying in my go bag. And then 3, what would you have for a house or location or base camp kind of thing, and it's just, or a camper kind of thing. So you've got 3 tiers. They're just, it's the same material, just more. I can carry bigger axes. I can carry bigger pots, cast iron in my vehicle than I can on my back, but that stuff can go a long way. There have been entire generations, or not generations, there have been entire peoples that have survived in the wild during wars and stuff. And the number one thing they kept other than guns is their cast iron, to cook it. Because
I mean, if you're going to be heading out into the woods or something,
right,
typically, like doing military contracting, we had this, about 100 pounds rucksack, and oftentimes we carried a lot of like tin type material, tin type metal. It cooks a lot faster. It's lighter. It's not as heavy as cast iron, but it does the trick. There's so that's why a lot of times when I try to tell people about bugging out is already pick your destinations, right? If anything else, if you like what I've done is I purchased property, just small, like 1-2 acre properties in 8 different directions from where I'm at within a day's driving distance. And a halfway point, I would find kind of an obscure location where I would take additional supplies and put them in a plastic 50-gallon drum, and then I would bury it in the ground, kind of off the road somewhere, like in a wooded area or something. No one is going to know that's there, but I've got it marked on my map. So if I'm going to travel one direction or something, something happens, like I got robbed or something, I have a halfway point. I've got extra, supplies that I can just pull up out of the ground, and it's right there. I can just grab the equipment and then just take off. So there's different strategies that we can, you can put into place.
Right. Yep. And of course, you got food is a major thing. Shelter is a major thing. Communications is a major thing. Medications are a major thing.
Access to water.
Yep. I lump food and water together, but absolutely. Those are all major considerations that have to be covered, because you're always going to need shelter. You're always going to need food and water. You're always going to need communications. You're always going to need weapons. Always. Those are the most important things. Shelter includes the clothes you're wearing, not just the cover over your head or tent. So those are things, and those have to be situational specific as well. Like, if you're in the snow, you're going to probably need a hot tent. I prefer canvas over nylon stuff that you buy in camping stores that won't last but a few weeks to months, whereas a canvas tent can last your whole life if you take care of it. You can live out of it, especially if you get one that has a wood stove, that you can cook in and keep warm in. So things like that, it's a lot of considerations to keep in mind, but that's where I said start simple and get a good foundation and build out from there. So you start just by prepping some food, some go bags, some basic supplies for medications, for guns and ammo, for, the things we just covered. And then you expand from there, go to your tier 2, expand more. What can you fill up in your vehicle? Tier 3, what can you fill up at a base camp or another location or in a camp or something else you might be able to pull behind?
And I might consider too, like a secondary type of motor transportation. So, some people will put a bike rack in the back of their SUV or whatever, and put some bunch of bikes on there. Maybe an extra tube for your tires and some of a hand pump so you can pump up the tires. Maybe a couple little wrench set just to fix some things along the way, and model a little. I use like a gun oil just to keep the things lubricated. But yeah, secondary motor transportation is going to be really equally important because God knows, we have vehicles break down, things happen. So at least this way you have something that you can go on. And if anything else, if you got somebody that's injured, well, it's easy to build some kind of a gurney system that you can tie to the back of your bicycle. You can essentially kind of drag them along, to get to wherever you need to go. So
yeah, a lot of hunters now are going more and more with these mobility bikes, and even bikes that are like the e-bikes and that kind of stuff, and using them even for hunting scenarios. And some of them now are being designed where you can carry wagons behind them attached to the bike or the e-bike and pull game or pull gear. So those are things that would be important. Have portable solar panel systems are super important, because you're going to have a way to
charge them,
to recharge devices, whether it be your comm system or whether it be a flashlight, or lantern. Lighting is a major deal we take for granted. So having flash, and you might not have access to batteries. Hopefully you bring some extra batteries, but eventually those are going to run out too. So having solar chargeable lights, whether it's a headlamp, whether it's a handheld flashlight, whether it's a lantern for you and your family to sit around, that's super important. Being able to charge all your comms, your phones, all that, plus medical devices. You might have medical devices you need to charge.
So this get your home bag, you get a solar charger.
Yeah.
You've got a bladder bag for water. Comes with a filtration unit. They got paracord. You've also got a rescue mirror. So if you're stuck or stranded somewhere and a helicopter's flying by, you can look through that hole right at the helicopter, and then the light hits it. Get the attention of the pilot. And this is the headband with the light on it. So you have a regular flashlight, and this is your LED track light. So it's super bright. So if you're in the woods at night and you're looking to get rescued, well, you can just hang this on a tree and you can turn it on. This bright light is going to shine. Helicopters or airplanes going to see this for miles. So, or if you're walking along in a kind of a dark shaded area or something, or a cave system, You can put this on your head, and you've got a guide light along with this too. So, and of course we've got a really good knife here. And we've got an emergency blanket, which is really important to have. And then, of course, this comes with it's kind of like a laminated, but it's shelter, fire, and water instructions. It shows you exactly how to build shelter, fire, and water. And then, of course, it comes out with these little metal punch outs. So you've got like a little fork here. You've got little hooks here so you can go some fishing. You got a little arrowhead spear. You can attach that to a piece of stick. So if you're doing some spear fishing, or if you want to use it for defensive reasons. So what else? Comes with it, waterproof matches. And this is a pen, but this also got a steel point tip on the back. So if you get stuck in a car or something, you need to break that glass, you can with this. Or use it for defensive capabilities. This one here is actually pretty cool. It's got a compass on it here. And then on the other side, this actually tells you what the temperature is, your air temperature. It's got a whistle in the front. It's also got a flashlight as well on the end. But if you open it up, so it's got a magnifying glass as well. And it's also got a rescue mirror. So you can kind of point that up, or you can use it to start a fire or whatever. So this little thing's got multi-function uses. And of course, it's got a little cord that you can wrap. You can put it around your neck and carry it with you.
Pharisee rod. Way to start fire. Get the ones with the holes. You can wrap it around your neck so you never lose it.
Exactly. Let's get a little roll of duct tape. Now, I'm going to end up replacing this with a monster tape because monster tape's actually better than regular duct tape.
Yeah, Gorilla tape.
Cheap.
This is that's one of the bikes with the, you can see with like a trailer on where you carry gear behind it.
Nice.
And you see hunters are using these more and more now. See, that one's got like a bow on it, and then this one's packing out a deer. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah, that's kind of stuff you got to think about.
And then, of course, it comes with a tool set. So for different uses, you got a little card that comes with it, and it shows you like can opener, knife edge, screwdriver, ruler, cap opener, 4-position wrench, butterfly wrench, saw blade, direction ancillary indication, 2-position wrench, lanyard, keyhole, and keyhole ring. And then as far as first aid, it's got this little first aid kit that comes with it. But I'm going to be upgrading this. This is just for like minor cuts and bug bites and stings and things like that. And then of course it comes with a little mask, a little cloth type mask with a filter. Some of the things I've actually included and added onto this is my compass. This is what we use in the military, is trying to figure out our locations. Then we've got the charger ports, and we've got extra strap. And let's see what else. This comes with extra like hunting and fishing type little metal equipment. Yeah, pliers is really kind of an essential because you're going to run into you might run into some old barbed wire fencing somewhere. You might need to you can utilize barbed wire fencing for something else. What else? And then of course I also I add like these little small batteries, right? One of the things too I wanted to share with you, John. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter what kind of battery you've got, but you can recondition these batteries once they go dead. And so all you need to do is take distilled water.
Yeah.
You heat this distilled water to boiling point, put it in a dish, and you put 2 tablespoons of salt in the water. You stir it up. You take these batters and drop them in there, and just stir it around for 5 to 10 minutes. Take these out, and then just take them and rub the contacts on over a piece of sandpaper or kind of a rough surface, and these batters will work again. So
that's awesome and good to know. I also carry an old style watch, just in case there's a grid down situation and you don't have battery working watch anymore. And I have a little button compass I keep on the end of it, But yeah, we're approaching not approaching. We passed the 3-hour mark, so we need to close it out. My system starts giving me trouble once I start going past 3 hours.
So, stuff like this that you can, put into a small bag, throw it over your shoulder. The general idea is the more stuff you were bringing, more stuff you have to carry, the slower it's gonna slow you down. So the idea of bugging out is get from point A to point B. But like I said, if you gotta go 1,000 miles to bug out, well, then you're gonna want to go with John's strategy, making sure you got ample equipment that's going to sustain you and kind of in the long term, because you're going to be facing some pretty rough challenges.
Right. Yeah, I try to focus on long-term provisions, like what did people carry during the Civil War, like just using wool blankets and canvas tarps. I mean, in a cup. I mean, these guys, they had very small provisions, but their gear worked and it lasted, and so that's like you can't beat wool. Even wool socks, wool underwear, wool coats, wool blankets. I mean, wool, and canvas. I mean, you can do everything with canvas, from filter as a pre-filter to water to shelter to all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I try to focus on longer term survival with stuff, or stuff if you can't go to a store and replace it, things that are necessities for warmth and shelter. You can also use a wool blanket and a canvas as a coat, not just a sleeping system or shelter. So you can have dual purpose. But and to what Shawn was just saying, one of the most famous statements in bushcraft is, the more you carry in your mind, knowledge wise, the less you carry on your back. So that's an important thing when you can only carry a limited amount of supplies on your back. So,
yeah, and that's why I kind of encourage people to go to survivalgear.us, and on there they have all of these different training camps for survival, and they will take you out there. They will fit you with the right gear, and they will show you actually how to use this stuff. So when you're out and about and you're learning how to put these things into practice, you got ex-special forces guys that are going to show you, how to use the equipment properly, and how to store it properly, how to carry it properly. And then, you're with a crowd of people, you're a small group of people, and you're going out on this adventure, and you're learning, something new every day. And by the time you get back home, you're going to be really confident about, okay, this is, what I need to have and how to do this. And that's another good book we all should be carrying with us as well. So
yeah, somebody in the chat just reminded me, don't forget to put your Bible in your go bag, which I believe that's a necessity as well. So, but look, we're gonna wrap it up. Shawn, I want to thank you so much for coming on again, my co-host, and thanks to all the fans. If y'all have any show ideas or stories, especially Dogman encrypted ones, please send them to me. And or if you know people that do, I would love to get more of that content on here. And more people are always requesting for more of that content. They just don't understand how hard it is to find credible people with those stories. So please help and share with that. hit the like and subscribe button. I told you they're suppressing this channel, so the only way it gets out is through word of mouth. So please do that and share the video with other people. Anyone that you think might need it. If you have any ideas for shows you want to see more content on, especially on these topics or more specific areas of these topics, please let us know. We'll be glad to go into those areas for you. We could spend all year on survival topics, which is one of my favorite topics, and it's just so many areas to go into. But I want to thank all y'all for coming, and thank Shawn again for taking up his valuable time to come on and share his knowledge and experience with us, which I'm grateful for. And until next time, everybody. Shawn, you want to say anything?
I would say, a good start is to, get yourself a copy of those two books, Survivor's Bible and Ultimate Home Security, and just branch out from there. Like John said, just you don't have to buy everything all at once. And if anything else, go to survivalgear.us, check out the training camps that they have for civilians. Go to those. You're going to get a really good idea of exactly what it is that you need. But the survival bags that they have as part of it, you get to keep those and bring those home. So at least you have something to start with and you have some experience.
Yeah, that's a good point. In the military, there's technical and tactical knowledge. Technical means you understand it. Tactical means you've actually done it in the field, which is two different levels. You know how they say that teachers that can't teach, they can't teach. You got to learn not just to be able to talk about it, but to actually physically do it. So going through those training courses, I highly recommend for anybody in any of these areas. So yeah, I would just agree with Shawn on that. And on that, thank you, everybody. Have a good night. I hope you had a good Christmas and a happy New Year, even though we're off to a rocky start. Please pray for the inauguration ceremony and pray to the Lord that we do not have terrorist attacks. We do not have bombs going off, which I'm expecting. And pray for President Trump and for his family and for their safety against terrorist attacks for our country and against assassination attacks against himself. Because I promise you, they are going to try to assassinate him again multiple times. So pray against that. Our prayers free God and free choice and enable him to act. So that's why prayer is so absolutely important. And so please pray for that. Pray for each other and turn your hearts to Jesus and draw close to him as you can, because that's the solution with everything that's going on in our world today. God bless all of y'all. And until next time, keep the lights on.